Hey, y'all, it's almost an agreement time. Sam's in the room with me. Max and AC are in Indianapolis, Indiana. We're going to try to get them to call in from the bar at the hotel or whatever they're doing. So, redid the whole studio this week just because I got bored. Hopefully we can make good use of this space. I do still have that pending announcement. They got pushed back a week. But you'll hear about it this week for sure. So anyway, we're almost in agreement at gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to our website, almostinagreement.com. That's where all the cool stuff's at. What are they called? The voter guide thingy that I put together is definitely one of the things that's there. Go there, you get the links to shows if I've done an interview with them, as well as links to their website as I get them filled in. Started to get a few more interviews back on the schedule. I've got maybe mayor candidate Debbie this week. She's got the COVID, but we'll talk about that amongst other things. And then I've got Nick Cipero coming back in and some other stuff in the next couple weeks. Anyway, moral of the story is we got interviews coming up. That's the point. Anyway, almost agreement at your favorite podcast provider. Like and share and tell your friends about us. We're going to keep doing what we do. And here we go.
Wasabi.
Nothing. Trying to get back in the groove. I'm so upside down with all this different stuff. So we've talked about it a couple times on the show. This House Bill 1927. For the listeners that care about the use of the 420 style products, it would behoove you to call whomever you can. Speaker Sexton's probably the closest that's in the subcommittee that the bill is in right now, and say, hey, this isn't cool. I want access to CBD products and THC products that are currently legal. Don't make new things illegal that aren't. Especially, like, that's been my whole thing with it is we're in Tennessee, so 9 times out of 10, if you call anybody in the House, it's going to be a Republican. And so I always tell them, as a Republican, you ran on not adding new taxes. You ran on smaller government, less red tape, less interference with business, more personal freedoms. By definition, this bill does the opposite of all of those things. So you have to vote no for this because this was your platform. You have to vote no on this bill because your platform says you have to. As the libertarian Tupac, as he likes to call himself, Dave Smith, he says that a lot. When you're engaging with politicians, you have to out left the left and outright the right. So whatever the topic is, you explain it to them that's a further right view of theirs or a further left view than theirs, depending on whom they are. And so I'm talking to Republicans in the state of Tennessee, so I take the right view and go to the right extreme. So there's no excuse for them not to follow.
I'm talking your language.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, that's the idea. You know, you go at it. I guess one of my issues that I'm coming to when I've started practicing that and when talking to people, more advocating for particular personal items, not for the sake of the show, but when advocating for particular items and whatnot, it's like, I've said this before, I don't know what the platforms are. Like, I don't know what conservatism is. Like, what are we conserving? Because the ones that are the big ticket ones that everybody gets excited about, we're conserving the boys and girls are the only genders that exist that can marry.
It's on a spectrum.
But I mean, it's not. But that's what I'm getting. Like, but again, but what are they conserving?
But
like,
it is.
But okay, but as a conservative, the idea is you want to keep things the way they are, right? That would be the conserving part.
In general, yeah.
So specifically on the bill that's in question, why would you change something that doesn't need changing? If you're a conservative, because as a conservative, you're supposed to keep things steady. That was the idea, I thought.
Not necessarily keeping things steady.
But if anything, you're supposed to be removing red tape, business interference, stuff like that. That's the platform, is that we want things to stay the way they are or get back to what they were before because before was better than now. That's the definition of conservatism as I understand it.
Well, I mean, definitions have definitely changed over the past decades.
Right, and to be fair, I mean it in the sense of that was the idea that's behind it, not that anybody actually practices it.
Right.
You know, that when people say conservative, what they're trying to put into your brain, what they want you to hear are these things. Not that these are the things they're going to do, but like right now, especially you drive around town, you know, especially up in District 7, since they're all Republicans in the commission primary, all of them, their signs are like conservative, true conservative, real conservative.
They don't say Republican, they say conservative.
Right. Well, because Larson's a Republican, so they don't want to associate themselves with that guy.
I don't think all of them are just...
They're not at all.
Okay.
Just the handful that are against him. I mean, the GOP in general is against him. But I don't know. Again, that's the problem I have. I don't know. Like, and I don't know what Democrats are either. I don't know what they are. I don't know what they're supposed to do. Liberals, whatever the different terms are.
I mean, I think that's the issue with it. Everyone wants to kind of pigeonhole them into an assumption of
communist.
You're this. You're Republican. You should align with these things. You're Democrat. You should align with these things.
Okay, and I can get it on the issue.
I think we should get more down to a personal ideological level,
right? And I can get that.
Like, okay, you're a Republican, but that doesn't tell me much. I'm assuming you're for not a large government, smaller government. Like, okay,
and I can get
outside of that. I mean, you could be on either side of many, even controversial issues, being a Republican.
Yeah, but I don't know. But again, that's the.
I don't think.
I understand that, like, issue
stance. I mean, but they get. But they also get a wide swath of voters just by having that R or D.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But
it's like, okay, you're a Republican. Okay, cool.
Right, but it's like, who was it? What was the? Is it Popeyes? We do chicken right? Who was the one that had that was their catchphrase?
Might be Popeyes.
But anyway, the point being is that you use the catchphrase as a sales tactic. That's what it is. You say, we're Popeyes. We do chicken right. You like chicken? Get our chicken because we do it right. Well, conservative, do you care about values X, Y, and Z? Then vote for us because we're gonna enshrine those and make sure you can keep doing, or nobody's interfering with you doing, or give you the right to, or whatever. But that's not what anybody does at all anymore, and that's what's frustrating about it to me. Is like I can understand, like I'm not sure I know the true definition of a liberal. I know classical liberal, which is more Republican now than anything, but blah blah blah. Like I know some of the parts and pieces of it. On the left side, at least, I'm less educated, I suppose, on definitions of how the left works because I've ran in right circles more of my life, and so I get it. Like, I understand some of the terminology and what the definitions and the pillars and the ideals are, air quotes. But no, I mean, again, nobody follows them, obviously. But, like, just the standard to hold against, that's what I guess that's frustrating. It's like, again, just using the specific example on this 1927 bill, it's like, you specifically say... And I would bet every single person that votes yes on this in their campaign, if they actually ran because they had somebody against them, depending on these random counties they're from, that they said, conservative, less government interference, not going to raise taxes, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, again, on this one too, they say it's upwards, it's in the tens of millions, if not $100 million a year in tax revenue. Well, if you're going to promise me no taxes, you sure as shit shouldn't be giving away a good chunk of tax income right now. And I told Sexton that too. I was like, you can't give away these kind of taxes unless you're going to raise taxes somewhere else, especially if you're going to underfund the schools, which I still don't have a fucking clue on. I did exchange some emails with Mr. McPherson, and I'm going to get him in here in the next week or so.
Nice.
And try to get a understanding of this new TISA.
I've been reading one story about it. I think it was maybe last week that Penny Schwinn, the head of the Tennessee Department of Education, it was her position. Mm-hmm. Apparently, she was in. I'm assuming it was probably an education committee or something, but she was on the State Hill. Let's say it was like a 2-hour long kind of like session up just with her. I'm assuming there was a lot of just like back and forth, and probably even her herself pulling in somebody from legal to define this or that.
Or her asking, or people asking, so like, well, how does this exactly work, and how does that exactly work? And
that's one thing I was trying to tell you about last week. In a lot of these meetings, there is a good bit of question. I think sometimes it comes down to the issues that they're talking about, or even sometimes how interested the other representatives are about a certain subject. But I see more, probably, maybe not more often than not, but a good 1 out of 3 bills are coming up. Well, they'll go out of session to even go out of session, just like talk amongst themselves to an extent.
Well, see, I can understand that in the rules of engage. What are they called? Rules of whatever when they're on the floor.
rules of procedure, I guess, or rules of conduct.
Right, rules and procedure, whatever it is. Like, I could understand being like, hey, let's get out of here. Let's go sit at the restaurant. Let's chat about this, where we could just talk like normal people instead of having to play that.
No, they don't get up and leave. They still do it there. But I think it also cuts off I don't necessarily like the recording.
Right,
because they still do that. But
not on the same topic, but I know Gloria was pissed off.
Sometimes if they don't take minutes, maybe they stop taking minutes at that point.
Gloria was complaining about something that she had planned to speak on, and I guess Speaker Sexton or whomever, I can't remember exactly what it was, but basically just put it to an early vote before the finish of discussion.
I've seen some of that. We'll do like a quick voice vote.
Right.
Or they'll take a voice vote of yeas and nays, and they don't really wait. They're like, and in the opinion of the chair, the yeas have it.
Right.
It's like, you gave like half a second to even try to listen to any nays.
I mean, in fairness, they probably have a good head count going in, and they know what it's going to be when they say yay and nay. But what Gloria was pissed about is she's like, okay, I understand that this vote was going to go through. I wasn't going to get it. My speech that I had planned wasn't going to change any minds on the floor.
Yeah.
But it was going to get some specific items on the record that I wanted to put on record is associated with this bill. And so they basically just intentionally didn't give me the chance to talk, which, I get her point of view on that. But
yeah.
Again, like we talked post show last week, and I think I stumbled across like another reason why I need to quit my day job and do this full time is like because I think I jokingly said it in the shows, like the amount of content it would take for us if we just dedicated full time. At least for during session, we'd be busy as shit. The rest of the year, we'd get to slow down a little bit, but just to do a 15 to 30 minute episode on every single bill in the state. Like, I've been thinking about it all week, and it's like, I don't know how I'd go about doing that. And this is the problem.
You'd have to pick. I mean, I would say you'd have to wait until at least made it through a couple committees and basically, had some wheels behind it before it would even be worth us trying to discuss. Because there's a lot of things that people propose. I don't know, sometimes if they're just doing it to make it look like they've done something. Right.
And I'd asked Mr. Farmer's assistant called me back, and I was talking to him after I'd complained about 1927 to his office. And I was asking some different stuff just because I had him. I was like, hey, man, I do this podcast here too. If you want to check it out, do it, blah, 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 blah. But, I've been curious about some of these different things because, like, when I go on the website and look it up, it's this weird, pushes back the deadline from January 1 to January 15. And that's nothing like what everybody's telling me this bill is going to do and what I'm actually against. I don't care if you change some deadline for some paperwork being due, whatever. I'm not complaining about that.
Right.
But if I go on the Tennessee, because remember I was telling you last week, Gloria was like, the website's really good. You can get a lot of information off there. And he's like, well, you got to go in, and then you got to go to the Senate, go to the amendments, and then the Senate amendment is really what we're voting on in a House bill.
Right. Because there's almost always a companion bill.
Right, which I get that part, but he's telling me this, but he says the summary that's on the main page when you search it.
Right.
He's like, yeah, sometimes they do that where it's just kind of a placeholder. So the actual content of what's actually happening is 3 tabs over, and depending on how intricate this thing is at least one link where this is one of those 2 that's Tennessee Code annotated XYZ. Replacing this, or I think it says removing the period, adding a comma, and then this line, period, is what the HB 1927 will actually do.
Right.
It will take the period off the end of a sentence that exists, put a comma there, and this phrase, period. Which then therefore means, to understand it, you have to go find the Tennessee Code as it exists, take that section, do whatever the new bill says to do, remove the cut period, add the comma, add this line, and then understand what that means legally. Because you've talked about it a bunch of times that there's a rule and maybe a law that they're supposed to have it available in layman's terms.
Yeah, I thought there was a general rule that anything written into law has to be able to be understood by the general public.
Right, and so
it can't be an ambiguous law. If you're going to have someone have to abide by it, they have to understand what the law is.
But so as a function
because
of
that as a defense in court is not that I didn't understand that or I didn't know that was a law.
Right, I didn't know that.
That's not a defense, right? Yeah.
And it's unintelligible might fly where I didn't understand it and it's the general public can, then that's not an excuse either. But I would say, I would think that if the rule is we need to have a layman's version available, that's what the summary should be. And if the summary goes from the initial summary to getting amended, that summary that is the landing page when you're looking into this bill should be the one that gets updated first. Should be the amendment came out, so we update the summary to say this is what this bill is going to do. If they wanted it to make it easy for us, the public, to understand it.
Yeah.
Which again, like, the assistant, farmer's assistant's like, yeah, just go here, blah, 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 blah. He's like running through this real fast like he does it every day because he probably does and he knows it well. Which again, that goes back to a point that I've made months, maybe a year ago. It's like, this game is so complicated and they know it. The people that know how to play the game have no incentive to uncomplicate the game. Because by uncomplicating the game, it's going to make it easier for us to hold them accountable or other people to get involved in ways that they don't want. It is in their best interest to stay complicated because they understand it and we don't. You're so generous. Like, really? You don't think so?
I definitely have skepticism to it, but at the same time, if you were going to write something into law, you have to write it very specifically. There cannot be ambiguity when you're writing a statute or a law.
I agree. And it's also has to
I
be...
don't think they're trying to make it complex. I think legally they have to make sure there are no...
I understand. Like, again, it goes back to like this. Probably one of the first times we had this conversation was over the ballot item about the law director's office.
Yeah.
Is why did they word this so stupid? Why don't you just put it in fucking English? I understand specifically that it was printed on the ballot exactly as it would be written, which it was going to take away a period, add a comma, and insert this phrase. Or it was going to change for us, there was a charter amendment that was on the ballot. We're going to remove this text and add this text about voting for the law director. Yes or no? And that's totally weird, it's stupid and funny. And again, I understand for the technical sense, this is literally what's going to happen. We're going to take these phrases out. We're going to replace it with these phrases. That is the actual law at play. But the layman's term, the summary version, the outward facing one for the public should be the layman's version, not the technical version.
I agree.
I think on that ballot item, it could have been really easy. Do you think the public should vote for law director? Yes or no?
Right.
Or vote yes or no. Yeah, which is some simple way to say it.
I'm with you on that, especially if you're going to put it on a ballot item.
Right, and again, same thing. I think that's how the website should be treated, and the standard operations of the Hill in Nashville should be treated. It should be, here's the technical version, and we that are doing the work here in Nashville in our House District X, Y, and Z, as they're discussing it, this is the technical version. But here is what it means to the public, and that is what we put front-facing. The simple, general, logical. And then when people come with questions, you can be like, hey, yeah, that's the general idea. Here's the specific terminology, and this is more about what that means. But just a general, hey, this one in particular, what it's actually going to do, it's going to make all THCs, regardless of origin, and then regardless of substrain, basically into weed by Tennessee law. And so any of the THCOs and Delta 8s and any of the neighbors and cousins of weed are now going to be considered weed, even if they're grown with hemp and blah, 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 blah. Which would be a very simple phrase. It'd be a very simple, easy way to put that in a summary so that anybody can go and look at it and say, this is what they're trying to do. Hey, Senator, Congressperson, I think that's a good idea. Hey, Senator, Congressperson, I think that's a bad idea. Please don't. So we can actually engage with it better as citizens. But they don't want that. That's my point. I don't think they want that. They're going to say they want that if you ask them, but I don't think they actually do. Because I think that would be an easy fix.
Why do you think they don't want it?
Like I said, I think it's in their best interest. They have to answer less questions. They have to do less work. It's less likely that they're going to have challengers and other people that are getting into the races with them because it seems complicated and big and fancy, and you need to be a lawyer to play the game kind of stuff. And so, people are like, "Oh, I can't get into that. You got to know what you're doing. You got to understand this thing." I go in there and I work on the website and I read through all the different stuff and I don't understand any of it.
No, definitely they could do a better job of on the summary aspect of it.
Right.
And I've definitely read some bills where I don't know if they were just still in the middle of it, because a lot of times those things that are on the website are bills that are in the process where it'll show you what committee it's in and what committee it's going to next and what votes have been in
right,
different
which that's kind of
committees.
cool because it helps you get the right person if you do want to interact.
Right.
But it's also weird too because it's like Eddie Manis is not in the subcommittee that this is in right now. Likely Eddie Manis doesn't even know it exists yet, or if he does, he barely does. He doesn't need to know it yet because it's not on the floor for him to actually vote on. And so I can't call my rep and be like, hey, no thank you. This is not something I want. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Or he's like, okay, when it gets to the floor, I'll keep that in consideration.
Right.
Because Sexton and Farmer are the closest two geographically to me, but there's only like 8 people or 10 people in the subcommittee, and none of them are Knox County reps. I can't even pull the Knox County resident card. It's got to be, I live in East Tennessee. That's close enough to your district, right? I think like one of them's Hamlin County.
I'm a pseudo constituent, right?
Yeah. And I mean, the assistant told me that, he said basically, I'll give you a little bit of leeway, or like we in general tend to. He's like, I always pass stuff. Oh, that's what he said. He said, I'll always pass something on to Mr. Farmer that's from either someone in the district or close. Right. And I guess that he's considering me close.
Right.
I'd have to look up exactly where his district is, but it might be Hamlin County or Cobb County. It's northeast of here, and Sexton's over there too. Maybe maybe southeast Union County. I don't know. I assume Union County doesn't have a bunch of them.
Certainly learned a few of them.
But what was the one I was looking for here?
There was one other thing. I think I just sent you the House bill number on, but it actually had, and the third little link over actually had a 2 or 3 page document. I think that's more of like the bill as it's written.
Right. Which is good. But yeah. Anyway, yeah. Sorry. I totally blanked out. I was looking, there was a Knox Dems post that I was going to bitch about, and then I can't find the right one. Oh, the Republican Party wants to ban gay marriage.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Knox County GOP wants to outlaw gay marriage. Any local Republican who thinks otherwise should loudly condemn the party.
As the GOP announces.
That's I love that you asked that question. Hey, we as a show asked, can you please share what and where this assertion came from? And they said yes. And they sent us a link to the national platform.
Which typically does trickle down,
yeah,
but it's never a promise of, hey, this is the national platform. You have to be this platform as well. We encourage you, wink, wink, but
right. And I find it interesting though, as you go down, is this Ernie fella says, who's profiting from this new wave of gender discrimination? Well, according to Knox Dems and their reference for this, it's not a new wave. It's always been that way. And again, this is one of those things about the parties, because in reality, I think, yes, some top brass, some high-end GOP party members or executive committee members or something like that are probably homophobic and hate gays and want to get back to man and woman marriage and ban abortion and blah, blah, blah. Like, they really want those things. But I'd say as a party as a whole, they gave up on it. Maybe they still care about it, but it's not an issue that they're going to fight. When's the last time?
I would still think a majority of quote unquote conservatives, maybe not necessarily Republican, but conservative minded people, believe that gay marriage is destroying the quote unquote family, traditional family.
Well, I mean, it is by definition. Yes,
how?
If it's destroying the traditional family. If the traditional family, by their definition, is man, woman, child, a man, child is not a traditional family. So by the numbers, statistically, it's going to reduce the numbers of traditional families. Therefore, maybe destroys an overstatement. But I mean, it's not important. It's not an important point to make. But it's the same thing as my stupid Nazis in Ukraine thing. It's true. It's not really the reasoning behind it, but it's true. You don't want to go back on there at all?
No, I mean, I don't agree with it. I mean, half of all marriages end in divorce.
It's true.
I mean, what's destroying, quote unquote, what's breaking up families? A same-sex couple that adopts or has children, or a male and female
that can't stand each other after a couple years.
Has a 50% chance of having a divorce that breaks up that family.
I mean,
what's more detrimental to the kids, having two parents or opposite sex parents that half the time can't even get along?
To be fair, statistically, how many same-sex couples get divorced? Is that part of that 50%? Are they the same coin flip?
I haven't seen it differentiated, but I would say it's less.
Okay, well, to be fair, if we don't know any better and we assume it's in that same number, then I don't think that's a valid argument.
Yeah. I still like I don't know what comedian said it first, and I'm sure many have copied each other, but same-sex couples have the same right just to be as miserable as everybody else.
Right,
yeah,
sure. I'm saying that's not a valid. I mean, that's not a valid comparison because the divorce rate's the same.
You're assuming that it is.
You're assuming that it isn't.
True.
And I'm just saying, you're assuming that it's not, and it's like, well, it might be. It might not be.
Yeah, I think generally they just say half of all marriages.
Right. And so it could be, and there could be some data out there that says like 70% of same-sex marriages stay together, where only 50%, or well, I guess mathematically it would have to be less than 50% of male-female marriages stay together. Just for technicality's sake, it might be 45 because of the total numbers or whatever, but 45% of I've said it backwards. 30% of same-sex marriages end in divorce. 55% of male-female marriages end in divorce, because it would have to be a significant difference. It's a larger difference in the gay community than it would be in the straight community because of the total numbers to bring it down to an average of 50 across the board. If you're right, but that's an assumption. Math, everybody, we're not good at it. But again, it's just such a I guess my point, I backed off and I thank Knox Dems for citing their assertion.
Right.
But at the same time, it does. I don't know. I'm trying to think of the last time. The first thing that's popping in my head is this Kentucky clerk refusing to issue marriage license, and
it's been the news recently because I think she's appealing the ruling.
But that was what, 2016?
Yeah, it's definitely been a few years.
So what's the most recent? Because that's the most recent that I can think of. What's the most recent GOP Republican action against same-sex marriage that you've seen at all?
Man, I'm trying to remember when exactly the quote-unquote Defense of Marriage Act was attempted to be passed.
I mean, it was during Obama.
Was it?
I mean, the Supreme Court ruling came down with Obama.
Yeah, I think you're right, yeah.
So, I mean, it was at least 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And that would have been if it was the day before Obama left. And it was, I think it was somewhere in his second term. So, probably 8 years ago, probably about 2016, when this bitch lost her mind. But I'm just saying, realistically, I don't know. It seems to me that was something that the Republicans are against, theoretically, and don't want same-sex marriage and want to go back to traditional families and blah, blah, blah. But they're not acting on it. So I don't know if that's a fair standard to hold them on as a general rule. If you're a Republican and you like Republican things, if you like lower taxes and you like less government interference and all the things that Republicans say they are, but you don't care about gay couples or you think gay couples are cool, you should hate all Republicans. That's a broad strokes version of what this Knox Dems post is, but that's basically what they're saying. You shouldn't vote for him because they hate your gay friends. That's what they're saying here, but realistically, I don't think anybody cares anymore. At least not politically, functionally, they don't care anymore. They might actually care about it, but they don't care about it enough that they're going to go try to pass a law to ban same-sex marriage again. I haven't seen it if they're doing it.
Yeah, it may just be they may not want to weigh in on it. They don't want their
it's
view to
politically
be known.
Right. And so, just because it's part of the platform, which we already asserted earlier in this show that none of them follow platform anyway, but even if it is part of the platform, a majority
follow the platform. You're going to have outliers on either end of it.
You're not going to
take an issue too far or disagree with the issue.
Right. Right. But I'm just saying you're not going to have...
I'd say it's probably, 60 in the middle, 20% on the high end, 20% on the low end to be egalitarian.
Right. But I'm just saying I don't think... it's not a winning topic if you're a Republican. You're not going to win on that stance. So you're not going to run on that stance. If you get elected...
I'd say on the GOP side, they would gain more support than they would gain more support by supporting a Defensive Marriage Act.
I don't know. I mean,
then
I don't see that
speaking out in favor of it. I think they would have.
I don't see that in Knox County.
I think they would lose more people.
I don't see that locally, at least. Because if that was true, then they would have played the anti-gay card on Eddie Manis running against Gina. Somebody would have done it. One of those dirt ads. I mean, you remember?
Maybe they don't care if he's gay. They just don't want him to get married.
Fair enough.
I don't know.
I mean, I get, but I'm just saying, if it really fucking mattered,
I don't know.
If it really fucking mattered, they wouldn't have let him through the primary, is my point. There was enough there. It would have been crazy. It would have been weird. But there was enough there that they could have got Eddie out of that race.
I don't know if he just had enough of a face that they really didn't want to sling that much mud on him.
Well, I mean, they didn't want to set a precedent.
Because, I mean, he owns a major company here in town and has been a community-minded person in the city for years.
I mean, for the most part, I've been happy with him, but I don't know. Again, this goes back to the thing. Like, I would love to be doing a scorecard on him. Not on whether he did Republican or Democrat things or he did what he was supposed to for the party or not, but literally some sort of scorecard that says, hey, this is Eddie's first run. These are his first 2 years in the House. Here's all the things he voted on and what he did. Now, I could say probably wouldn't be hard to generate House Bill 1, yay, nay, House Bill 2, yay, nay, and do a whole list like that. But to get it in a palatable format where I can sit in here with Eddie or with anybody and say, here's Eddie Manis in a nutshell. Here's the history of Eddie Manis. And take all the thousands of bills that he's voted on and get any sense of who he is. I don't know that that's possible. Because even if I could just get the House Bill 1, yay, nay, all the way down the list, I don't know. I would have to then go to each one of them and hope the summary is accurate. But we already know that's not true. So I'd have to go to each one of them and figure out what the bill actually is. And then make a value judgment on, is this... Again, and then that whole second section of making the value judgment on what that actually means is a whole other process that I don't know how to do. Like, so... I don't know. Personally, if he says yes to this 1927, I'm going to be pissed. But I don't know why. I don't know why he said yes to it or why he said no to it, Right. And so to go through and turn that into here's the scorecard of the guy, because, I mean, I guess the best way to do it is like, here's what you ran on. Here's what you said you would do. I'm going to take everything you voted on and compare it against what you said you would do in the situation. You said you would do this. You voted on a thing that included that, and you didn't do what you said. Right. And that would be the scorecard. But could you imagine how hard that would be to put together?
Definitely take a lot of time and effort.
I mean, and even just Knox County, that's 8 House members,
right?
2 senators, 3 senators, 3 senators. Well, 1 senator and 2 half senators, but because Briggs and who's the Senate vice?
Carringer's house. Sorry,
Carringer's house. No, it's the guy from Oak Ridge is he's not the Senate Majority Leader, but maybe he is. McNally.
Okay. So there's
Speaker.
Yeah.
Speaker Sexton and Senate Majority McNally. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway.
I think McNally's on the Senate.
Right, but he's out of Oak Ridge, but he has a sliver that comes down of the not gerrymandered district.
Yeah, then there's Reagan, which I think Reagan's in the House. He also has a sliver of Knox County, but is considered Oak Ridge representative.
Yeah, so, anyhow, that's I don't know. I don't know. I'm just, the more I get into this, the more I'm convinced that anything the parties say is bullshit. Anything the parties say about any of the candidates is bullshit. It's obviously got an agenda to it. And I'm not going to take the energy other than to poke holes and humor myself about any party stance or any of the parties' communique on what's going on. Although I have been pleased, the GOP's been doing candidate forums where they've had their candidates out in public and places and be like, hey, come check us out, come meet us, and stuff like that. Good. Dems have done some of that too, but I missed it Thursday. I should have gone. Thursday there was a whole county candidate expo where they all, it was at the expo center, the 641, I think, and they all had booths, and it was just like going to like a reptile con or whatever, but instead of having bearded dragons and shit like that, it was, hey, this is Rhonda Lee's booth. Hi, Rhonda. How are you? Good to meet you. I wish I could have gone.
I meant to ask the guy what kind of meeting it was, but the guy I know that works for a printing company. I guess they manage. You rent their printers from them, and they give you ink and paper, or not give you paper, but whatever. Major company in town. But apparently, he was down with a whole bunch of the law department. I guess with Knox County and Knoxville. I guess had some kind of get together, and he was down there as a kind of a sales meeting and trying to, I guess, drum up business. And they're like, oh, so nice. You said the law director down there?
You said the sheriff's department? Yeah, I need to.
No, I think it was all just kind of like, I guess it was just the law department.
Well, like that was one I shared with the group from Brian Hornbeck's page.
Yeah.
So like the weirdest fucking story, trying to figure out what actually happened. So somebody's car stalled or something like that on the side of the road. Deputy either called out or just happened to be there and was trying to do his job and help this citizen out. And I guess the citizen was out of their car, but they'd come up with a plan to push the car to see if they get it to roll start. Assuming it's a manual. I don't know. Doesn't say that in the story.
I thought they were just trying to push it out of the way.
No, the way it read to me was that they were trying to push it out of the way, but push it to get it somewhere. I don't know. Maybe the roll start was
I think that's in your head.
Conflated. Yeah, I may have made that up. But either way,
there's not that many stick shift cars anymore.
I got one. Anyway, they whatever it was, the plan was decided that they're going to push the car somewhere.
Right.
But I think that my assumption again was that you who own the car get in the car. I'm going to push and you steer, so I can get you over into that parking lot or somewhere, or over where there's a wide spot in the road where we can actually get you off the road, but in a safe spot, whatever. Well, the deputy just started pushing it without the person in the car. Rolls down a hill into some apartment building's office.
Yeah.
And the sheriff's office is like, nah, we're not paying for that. You could at least go after, if you're the apartment, I'd go after the driver too for damages.
Yeah, you'd think her car insurance may or may not. I don't know if the car insurance would be like, well, you weren't in control of your car, so
right. What reminded me though,
the car itself is insured that covered that did the damage.
Right, but so this is a lie, but I'm just going to pretend like I'm saying that this is the truth. But what reminded me of is you said law director's office is there was their
assistant,
the Mr.
Deputy Law Director.
Yeah, Deputy Law Director J. Myers Morton is quoted as saying, "You can't sue the king." Which, even if that's technically legally true, as far as the idea,
I saw that reference. It's like some old law that's on the books,
right? Even if it is true legally speaking, you don't say that out loud,
right?
That's that's as un-American as it gets. You can't sue the king, pshaw.
Yeah, I kind of had the same thought when you first sent it. I thought it was like, well, it was something that was done like in good faith, and then an accident happened. To a lot of times, if you're trying to there's that it was a Good Samaritan law. If you attempt to give CPR, but you accidentally harm the person in the process of trying to save their life, you're not necessarily considered at fault if the person dies. You were attempting to do the right thing.
But I could get that in the idea of the owner of the car not being able to sue the sheriff's office for the damages done to his car or her car. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I could understand that being the standard. Be like, hey, I was trying to help. If you needed my help, I was trying to help. Accident happened. Sucks. I could get behind that. I still don't think that's fair, but I can get behind that as a premise. But a third party not involved, had no conversation, was not a part of what was going on at all. You weren't trying to help them out and accidentally hurt them by helping them. No. that's where, I mean, I don't want the county to pay $35,000 or whatever it is to this apartment complex. Don't get me wrong, but you did the damage. Fucking fix it. Stupid. At least that's my opinion. But again, like, they can't sue the king part was the part that was like, what? Are you fucking saying that? How do you say it out loud?
Right.
Some Kyle Hickson from Knox County got promoted to some higher level judge.
Okay.
I don't know.
Is that cool? Is that a good thing? Bad thing?
I don't know. I don't understand judges. I'm on Hornbeck's page. I was reading some headlines.
Saying it. Okay. You're just saying random things with no purpose. Cool.
Yep.
All right. Why don't you pull up something else and I'll just start like reading some random shit.
Go ahead.
You may also like.
All right. So this is off Hornbeck's page. It's a quote from Kimberly Glenn. She's a spokesperson for Knox County Sheriff's Office. Hornbeck's headline is Knox Sheriff's pursuit ends in citizen death. And then the quote reads, Knox County Sheriff's Office, David Shift Patrol Units were pursuing a vehicle overnight in the Merchants Tillery Road area. The suspect vehicle was involved in a single-car accident. The driver of the vehicle was transported to the hospital where he later died. The incident is still under investigation. The name of the deceased suspect is being held withheld pending notification next kin. The rumor is that he was being pulled over for a taillight, which at that time, what did it say?
Oh, is this not the one that happened like last year?
No, this is...
Okay,
this was a couple days ago.
Uh-huh. Okay, yeah, I think I did hear about this Merchants. Yeah.
Yeah, but so I'm assuming, like, so the again, this is from Hornbeck's page, brianhornbeck.com. Information from an unconfirmed source indicate it began somewhere near downtown over a taillight, which means if it's overnight and it's a taillight, it's a DUI. It's a suspected DUI was why they were following him, would be my guess. They won't say that, but that's one of the games that they do play. Anyway, that's my review of Hornbeck's work for this week. Hornbeck does some good work. I do check in with his page fairly frequently. He's super partisan, and he has no qualms about it. And I guess I appreciate that part. If you're going to be super partisan, just own it. So, and I haven't really seen it. I think he displays his partisanship in choice of story, not in how he reports. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I think there's topics he doesn't cover or certain stories he doesn't cover because they affect his team, whatever you want to call it. Because I mean, still, like, I'm gonna, and even in that, like, I know he's a Jimmy fan. I know you
don't shit where you eat.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but I know he likes Jimmy. I know he's for Jimmy getting his sheriff's office back. And so to report a couple of stories leading into an election cycle about the current sheriff fucking up is good for the sheriff that he wants to win.
The possible investigation.
Right. And so I think that's how he shows his partisanship is what stories he covers, not how not how he covers them. He covers them pretty straight up. This is what happened. This is what I'm told. So anyway, that's the Hornbeck story.
I mean, it's hard to, I mean, in this day of the 24-hour news cycle, it's hard to pick what stories.
Right.
It takes time to even write up that story, get it to the copy editor, and get it approved.
Well, I mean, not for Hornbeck. He just posted it to his page, but he doesn't have an editor or anything like that. But yes, in the grand scheme.
I'm talking about people outside of Hornbeck. You just wanted to throw that in there anyway.
Yeah, I was talking shit. God damn.
Right.
Do you want to talk about the slap?
That wasn't what I was talking about.
Okay, finish what you were talking about, and then we'll not talk about the slap. I don't want to talk about the slap. I'm sorry I brought it up. I apologize.
You're the one that brought it up.
I know. I'm sorry. That's why I apologized. Shouldn't have brought it up. Anyway.
He resigned from at least from the academy.
But he's already got the award. That's all he wanted.
All right. Be cool if he just turned it back in. Like, all right, you can have this back. I know you guys already engraved my name on this, but you can take that plate off, right, and give it back to somebody else next year.
I just okay, fine. My thing is, I don't care. I can't. There is not an occasion where an audience member of any kind is allowed to get on stage and do anything physical at all with the performer and not at least, at minimum, get removed from the venue.
Right.
You know, usually pretty forcefully in a not friendly way. Like my favorite ever was Keenan from Tool. Some dude jumped up on stage and was running around or whatever. Keenan like crawls up on his back and puts him to sleep in a chokehold while still singing the song. Have you seen that video?
No.
It is amazing. I'm not a huge Tool fan. I was like, that's badass. But usually, they'll fucking, security will bounce you, like, really, they'll bounce you out. Like,
most places have, like 3 or 4, like, big guys up there.
Right, and I get it. It's the Oscars. It's a different set of people. They're all celebrities, this, that, and the other. I understand security not coming and roughing him up and taking him out.
Apparently, someone came up to him. I read a story that they came and, like, asked him to leave. I don't know if he just declined or just like, I'm going to stay.
I had heard that part of it, but it shouldn't have been a question.
Right.
I'm like, that's it to me. Like, I can't get on, like, there's no occasion where it makes sense to me where you're allowed to stay.
Right.
Okay, fine. We can
alone, however long, 20 minutes later, get up and
then
receive the award.
Right, yeah. But I mean, I can understand, it's a little bit different. Everybody's a celebrity there, this, that, and the other. But I mean, fuck, like, okay, so, I don't know, Jack Nicholson is famous for getting those bench seats at Lakers games. Or Spike Lee is famous for going to Knicks games, and he has those bench seats. And
you were right with Nicholas. I mean, you could have just stuck with that.
Either one.
I agree
I'm
with
just
you.
saying. Either one, they got those bench seats. But Spike Lee's came to mind just because he talks a lot of shit. Like, he'll get up there and he's screaming at the other team, and he's calling them stupid and making fun of them.
Does he do that on the court?
Yeah, he's very vocal. That's one of his things, and it's cool.
Yeah.
I think it's fun. But if he sets foot on court, he's getting bounced.
Right.
He should. I don't care if he's still a celebrity or something like that. He should leave.
Yeah, he would probably get warned first.
He might be right. That idea is the problem.
Most people, if you're down there on the court, you're paying high dollar.
If it's an incidental, like steps on the court,
not just if you're a star. If you're down there on the court, they know that you're at least somebody, or you.
But if it's incidental, you're excited and you step on court. That's one thing. But if you actually go out and strike a player, you're leaving.
Right.
I don't care if you're Jack Nicholson or Jack Nicholson. Yeah, no. You said Nicholas. I was like, no, not the golfer. Anyway, Jack Nicholson or Spike Lee or anybody, if you go on the court and strike a player, you're getting removed. That's the part that bothered me about it. We can argue whether the slap was justified or not. Doesn't fucking matter. I still think it might have been fake, but...
I mean, I think it's not. Whatever. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're getting a little gullible on that.
It doesn't... Okay. It doesn't matter. That's the point, but... That's the only thing that makes sense to me on why they wouldn't.
It doesn't matter that you think something that happened was just totally staged and faked.
I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
It doesn't matter that I think it's fake. It doesn't matter.
Right. It does not matter that I think something that happened in the Oscars might be fake. No, it does not matter at all to the world at large. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to you. It doesn't matter to anything. It's something stupid to talk shit about. Yes. Do you think less of me as a person because I think it might be possible?
If it doesn't matter to you, then you should not have an opinion either way. And I think it was fake, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think I said it could have been. I didn't say I think it was. I think it might have been. It might have been staged.
Might have been. It indicates that you're leaning more to one side than the other.
Sure. No, I don't know. I think I could argue. I think you could. I think it's good. I think it is a good conspiracy theory.
Why do you think that it was staged?
Because their ratings suck.
Does it make sense to you?
Absolutely. It makes 100% sense to me. This is the most...
To where like the Academy Awards staged this? Or just Chris Rock and Will Smith staged this? Or Will Smith staged this? I mean, how far does it go?
I mean, I don't know. It could have been...
Plausibility. You think it's possible?
A couple of producers went to
plausible?
A couple of producers went to Will Smith and Chris Rock and talked to him about it and said, "Hey, this would be a really cool thing. It would be great for ratings. People will be talking about it. This will be huge on the Twitter sphere. Some dumb fucks in Knoxville will be talking about it on their dumbass podcast." When's the last time you?
I think this is completely going to hurt Will Smith's career.
When's the last time you think you even said the word Oscar in conversation?
It's been a long time. Because I personally don't give a fuck about the Oscars.
Right. But you know this story.
But you're asking the wrong person.
No, but you know this story. You know that you are talking about the Oscars right now.
Because I read the news.
Okay.
That's the only reason I would have known about it.
That's why that's part of the reason why it's plausible to me. Is that this is an event that is all about ratings and people watching it and star power and all that kind of shit, that over the last couple of years, since Ricky Gervais roasted everybody, because that was the last time I remember talking about the Oscars, nobody cares anymore. Nobody watches it anymore, and this is a commercial event. The point of this is to make money.
There's still a good bit of people that watch it.
Sure, but not
I haven't looked at the ratings, but
I
people still care about who gets the Oscars. That's what gets advertised when movies come out, like Oscar nominated, blah, blah, blah. Oscar winner, blah, 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 blah. It's still a prestigious award that many people in America still watch.
Right, but do I need to watch the Oscars to understand and appreciate that this is an Oscar award-winning actor in a movie? I can still use the sales pitch, if it's true.
I mean, a lot of people turn on for like the handful of major awards.
Okay, so I guess the question is,
do you think, all right, who gets Best Actor? Who gets Best Actor? Blah, blah, blah.
Do you think the Academy charges, like they get paid? If I'm producing a movie and I have Academy Award winner Will Smith in my movie, and I want to say this movie is starring Academy Award winner Will Smith, you think I have to pay the Academy to put that in there?
No.
Okay, so if the Academy is trying to get views for their show where they do get paid, that doesn't help them. Yes, people still care about it, but the Academy wants people watching their show because they can sell their ads and make their money. Right? So to make the Oscars...
So is this to get people to watch next year's Oscars? Or is this to get people to watch the replays of this year's Oscars?
Anything.
How does this event get more people to watch the Oscars?
I mean, I would assume that there's plenty of different YouTube
because it doesn't happen for another year, and we have very short attention spans.
It's true. But I would say it was... Yeah, I would think that... What's the phrase? No press is bad press? This is a win for the Oscars, whether they staged it or not. This is a
so this is going to get more people watching it next year, and hopes that something that has never happened in Oscars history, outrageous as someone getting up and slapping another person across the face.
Do you know the history of wrestling, like when wrestling became fake?
I think I saw something the other day. I didn't actually watch it, but it was supposed to be talking about. Was it that Simon Whistler guy?
I don't remember the names.
Oh, I thought I saw something about that. Like the man that has like 15 different YouTube channels.
Like apparently one of the things that they did, like actual wrestling, Greco-Roman kind of stuff, in an attempt to try to commercialize it, they would go around to fairs.
Well, I might say even just like the original Gladiators. I mean, there were storylines for some of those people.
Right, but what wrestlers used to do is they used to go around to fairs, and one of the things that they would do is like in that scene in the original Spider-Man, where like that was a real thing that they used to do in the original Spider-Man, where he has like the sweatsuit version of his costume.
Okay, yeah.
And I can't remember who the real wrestler was that was in the movie, but that scene where it's like, who could beat the champion wrestler that we brought here and stuff like that.
Was it Macho Man?
It looked like him, but I don't think it was. It might have been. Anyway, but that was a thing that was real, and they used to do that. And they used to legitimately do that where they would wrestle. Like actual wrestle. There was no punching and stuff like that. It was just a like strong man kind of deal. And so apparently some places started putting people in the crowd that knew how to fight to go fight these guys. And so these guys that were traveling around with these fairs doing these wrestling things started putting one of their friends in the crowd. And then it was the whole gambling thing.
Who wants to face me? You there, come up here. I challenge you,
right.
Joe Schmo.
Right, and then the crowd would bet on the winner or on the champion, and then the plant would win. And then they would rake all the extra money from the gambling income and stuff like that. Uh-huh. And that was the evolution of it from a more real version of wrestling to this crazy show that is wrestling now. Point of the story is, why wouldn't the Oscars be susceptible to that same evolution? It wasn't intentional. They didn't plan it in wrestling to turn it into what it is today. But as they evolved through time, it worked its way that way and became the animal that is current wrestling. Why wouldn't it happen? Like, oh shit, maybe it was fake. Maybe it was real. So doesn't matter.
We're now going to the possibility that the Oscars is changing their format, that they're going to go from an award ceremony to being just
weird, outrageous show. Like, what's the most popular shit around?
A staged sideshow.
I mean, what's the most popular watched shit around? It's the outrageous, ridiculous stuff. They know that. They're not stupid. They pay attention to entertainment news. They write the entertainment news. I'm just saying. I'm not saying it is a fact that it was staged and that it was fake.
It sounds like you believe that it's more plausible than it was.
You asked me if it was plausible, and I gave you plausibility. That's all I was answering there. I don't know, and I really don't care. But I do like going down the rabbit hole of tinfoil hat conspiracy stuff. And this one has a lot of good pieces that make a fun conspiracy. It's plausible.
I mean, anything's fun when you use your imagination, sure.
Yeah. Sure, it's plausible. That's all the point is it's actually plausible. There is reasons. There are plenty of reasons why it could have been fake. And why it would benefit a lot of people. I think you need
to look up the actual definition of plausible.
It could be real, could be true. It could be factual. We don't know. We're not stating that it is a fact.
It's plausible, it's able to happen and believable.
Well, obviously it's believable by some people.
Yeah, apparently somebody even made a video that Chris Rock had some kind of weird pad on his face too.
I mean, I saw there was somebody local that was talking about they were a theater student at UT, and it's that's textbook stage fight, and he walked through this whole thing about not frame by frame, but pictures in series, and it's you see Chris Rock brace his face and turn his head a little bit away. You see Will Smith come through and wind up with the open hand this way, and I was I don't know fucking stage acting, so I don't know if that's true or not, but it has been assessed.
Stage fight is, in essence, supposed to look realistic, correct? So the fact that it kind of looked like it could have been staged, it's going to look a lot like an actual act that happened.
Okay.
A grown man coming at you with an open hand face up like he's about to slap you, you're not going to flinch.
Okay, so what was the number one thing I brought up when we started talking about this?
You don't care? You don't want to talk about it?
No, well, yeah, that was it, but we already got down the rabbit hole, so we're going. First thing I said on topic was, I don't care who you are, what you're doing, whether you're Spike Lee at a basketball game, you are not allowed to assault the performers.
All right.
And stay in the stadium, and stay in the venue.
So now you think it was an assault? Oh, gotcha.
So part of what makes it plausible that this was staged is the fact that he wasn't removed. He should have been removed. Anybody else would have been removed in normal circumstances. But it's also the Oscars. It's also Will Smith. It's also 1,000 things.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
So apparently I don't know if they had one person come out to him and was like, will you come with me? Because at the same time, I mean, it's still being filmed. So I think at the same time, they didn't want to cause a big scene. It's hey, Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, you need to come with me.
I mean, you don't kick her out, per se, but...
Just going to leave with them.
Yeah, but I'm saying, who cares if it makes a scene? If you're... Because again...
I don't think they wanted to add to the scene. I don't know.
All right, but I guess...
At the same time, like you said, it's Will Smith, and the guy's I'm just some random security guard. They asked me to go, ask Will Smith to leave.
Well, I'm saying,
he said no. I don't...
What am I
supposed to pick him up?
Right. But I'm saying,
can I get hands on?
I
don't... In my thought, I don't know if they just didn't want to add to the drama of it, of something crazy like that just happened, where everybody's what the fuck just happened?
Right, and now they're dragging Will Smith out by his collar and whatever. But at the same time, it's and I guess this gets to this real social commentary. What does it say? What does it say about it that you didn't go through what the normal process would be? Right. Oh, it's Will Smith. It's okay. He's allowed to do it.
Apparently, the LAPD came out and said we were there.
Right.
We were waiting just for any kind of charges to be pressed, which Chris Rock came out and said he wasn't going to press charges.
Right, which I think
he did a comedy show a couple nights ago. It was a couple nights afterwards.
Yeah.
And started out the show so how was your all's weekend? But apparently didn't really touch on the topic at all and said he was still processing it apparently or whatever. But I guess in part of his show, didn't want to really go into
it,
which
got an act.
I wouldn't either, yeah.
He's already got his act kind of worked out at some level, I would assume, and so just to throw a random new thing on top.
Right.
I think that's probably the best joke he could have done on it is, how was your weekend?
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe he's warming up to make it into a bit, and so he'd be how was your weekend? Let me tell you about mine.
Possibly.
But at the same time, it's topical, and you can't do that joke when it's a month ago. But did you go to Big Ears, any of the Big Ears stuff?
Did I go to it?
Yeah.
No, they sold out.
Really? I don't know how it works, so I don't know.
I think there's still some random open to the public type things you can go to that I guess that are more open air type concerts. But
we did that.
The ones they have in individual venues, whatever I heard a couple days beforehand. Yeah, you pretty much. Yeah, because I think the wristbands do get you into all of them essentially. Yeah,
because we were at World's Fair Park to do that. The kids race, the kids run thing for the marathon, whatever. And there was a stage set up on the lawn, And I'd seen in the news somewhere that were doing concerts in the amphitheater over there too on World's Fair Park.
Yeah, I think
there was nothing over there while we were there, but it was Friday evening. There was definitely a band playing as they finished up and we were getting together and getting out of there. So there was a band playing on the lawn down there, like with where all the Circle of Flags is and the little water feature. Right. But I don't know if that was part of Big Ears. That was part of the marathon thing. That's pretty cool. I mean, that says something about Knoxville's capacity for stuff.
It's gotten bigger and bigger. And at the same token that shit's been shut down for 2 years.
Right. But I'm saying you have...
Or Big Ears at least has been... I don't think they had it for the past 2 years.
Right, but you have it's the Knoxville Marathon. It's our major race of the year. But it was Sunday morning. But it's like a major... There's a marathon circuit or whatever, and it's a race on the circuit. So you got pros coming from wherever pros exist that run marathons.
It was a local guy that won it, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but you have all that stuff going on and this giant music festival, which helps because we have Ashley Caps here, and AC Entertainment's a big deal, and he likes to do stuff around here. I mean, like, it's weird to me, like, people talk about Bonnaroo. I've never been, but, like, a couple of podcasts I listen to, they're like, yeah, we're going down to Bonnaroo this year, and they're, like, New York people and stuff like that. It's like, you come down to Manchester, Tennessee for a concert? It's not just a concert, it's a festival. I get it.
I mean, it rivals Coachella as, like, the biggest, music festival in the U.S.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's cool. I think it's great. I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying, like, it just sounds weird to my sensibilities. I'm so used to this. We're kind of podunky around here.
Yeah, it's a couple hours away. Man, that's Bonnaroo. Yeah, cool, whatever.
Yeah. I'm going to go down to
You're like, yeah, but the Rolling Stones headlined it 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, shit.
And it makes it great. Like, he does, like, whoever does their booking and their schedules, they do some crazy.
It's part of Live Nation.
But, like, Bonnaroo itself.
I think it's been a part of Live Nation for a little while.
They have some of the craziest combos. Like, you'll have, like, Radiohead a couple years ago headlining one night, and then the night before it was, like, Snoop or some major old school rapper.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be able to appeal to a wide crowd.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to have them pay for a 3-day pass.
Right. I have zero desire.
I wish I would have gone years ago before it got as big as it was.
I have no want to be in a field full of people.
Right.
I mean, it's like a couple times, like when Radiohead was there.
Yeah, even like general admission shows, I'm like, I don't want to go do that.
Yeah. Yeah. But like I've looked at some of the lineups and stuff. I'm like, yeah, it'd be kind of cool. I might see that band. Like, I can't remember who it was. There was one year, there was two bands. I was like, I'd want to see them. And they were same time, different stages.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, well, that sucks. I can't see them both. I only get to see one. Well, or I can see like half a set of one and then run over and see half a set of the other or whatever.
Right.
That's lame. Don't want to do that.
Well, I think it's cool is usually with some of the bigger ones, that final night or whatever, they'll have like the super jam where it's, 3 or 4 of like the big acts that all kind of come out together.
Right. Fuck around for a little bit.
Do a big medley. Yeah.
That is pretty cool. But again,
it's like Al Smith, Keith Richards, and Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, but I mean, think about when the stadium's built and Big Ears Festival 2024 with Smokey Stadium as a venue, and how that changes how they do their lineups and stuff like that.
That's possible, yeah.
It could. I mean, it could be really cool. It could be a really good add-on. I think it's
close enough, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because they do old city. They used to do old city venues. I don't know if they still do because I don't know how many old city venues are left. But Mill and Mine's one of them, and Mill and Mine's right there off the old city. But Blue Cats Envy's gone.
Yeah, I don't know if I call that.
When it was Blue Cats, it was a venue. Envy wasn't. It was nightclub dance.
The Mill and Mine. That's for the old. It's like right next to where the old Regas is.
Yeah. Just over the train tracks.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of old city. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's between.
It's close, like central.
I mean, it's on the south side of 40.
Literally right next to it.
Right, but it's east of Central.
Underneath
it. It's east of Central, south of 40. It's that wedge. And I mean, I think that's the point if the stadium does what it's supposed to do.
I think of Old City as
Jackson and Central, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one block radius around that, essentially. To where that, you're crossing Summit Hill, going all the way down the other side of Gay Street.
You're not crossing Summit Hill to get to Mill and Mine. Summit Hill, south side of Old City. The train tracks are the north side, where the bus station is. Like that to me, like when you go, like where.
No, if you go down Gay Street across Summit Hill, that tease you right into where Regis used to be, and it's like 2 doors down from that.
Right, but not from Central. That would be from like downtown Gay Street.
I was just saying it was close to Central.
Right, it's between Central and Gay Street.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sorry.
I don't know.
Anyway.
Welcome to Maps of Knoxville, everybody. Where we don't know what the fuck we're talking about.
I haven't been down there in a while, but 2 years ago when I went down there, I think it was around this area.
Middle of Nine's pretty great. Have you seen anything there?
Once, yeah.
Yeah, we went and saw Walk the Moon there. It's a pretty good show. They went, like, it was literally the last of their tour.
I was wondering how it would be, because they had the big garage doors, where they've got that kind of like faux gridded out turfs or whatever.
Plastic grass, yeah.
Yeah. The band I went and saw, they had those down. But I wonder, like, how big of a show they could have if they had that open, but then how good is the sound out there
it
when that's
sound
going
very
on.
good,
Yeah.
or you couldn't see very well. But
the sound was good inside.
Yeah, I enjoyed it very much. It was crazy because Walk the Moon was the last of their tour. And it was literally like, hey, we were going to go home, but we just got a call. We're going on Muse's world tour. And so, like, he was talking about on stage, like, we were literally leaving here, packing up. The band is flying to, like, Buenos Aires or something, like either that night or the night after, to get to Muse, and they're going to figure out the equipment part later. So that's pretty badass.
Yeah.
And I think, is that show coming to Knoxville? I'll see that show too. I don't know if I could handle Muse on.
That was cool. I saw Explosions in the Sky, and they were doing, I think they just called like their anniversary tour. So they were playing, I think they had like 5 albums out at that time, but they were actually playing songs from all their previous albums. So it wasn't going on tour for a specific album where they pretty much just played off their new album. They're like, hey, we're going to play through our whole calendar.
That's cool.
Or our whole catalog, excuse me.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it was good. Some badass songs. I'm like, oh, I almost forgot about that one. That was awesome.
I haven't been to, I'm trying to think I think that might have been the last concert I've been to.
I think it was the last time I went to.
I was thinking about it earlier.
I think it was like right before everything started shutting down.
Mine was like 2019 when I went. Maybe early 2020. No, it was 2019. Anyway, what else was there? I was thinking about it earlier tonight. It's like stuff that I haven't done in a while. I haven't played live poker since the pandemic started. Like, I used to be Ritual Tuesday night over at Roosters. They haven't started playing. They haven't even started playing back there again. I know there's games going on.
Yeah,
but
I've heard of a couple.
Yeah, there was a tournament today. There's some like thousand player invitational somewhere today.
Is it that Gator Hater tournament?
No,
they do every year. No,
I don't know if it's affiliated with the same group, because the Gator Hater tournament's a fundraiser.
Yeah, for right before the Tennessee-Florida game, I think.
Right, and it's always a fundraiser for the Love Kitchen.
You're right. Yeah,
yeah, because I don't know if Dan still does it with brewery. I mean, Dan's not with brewery anymore, but I don't know if Dan's still involved.
I don't think so.
But Kelly,
I don't know if they've started back up.
Kelly's big on putting it together. Kelly does great. He does great work.
Yeah.
His games are a little rough just because
I only had one game that they ran that I went into, and that's because they were trying to do Limit Omaha.
Yeah.
And even they were confused on the rules.
If you got a dealer for it, I'd play. But if
I had a dealer, and the dealer was confused.
Yeah.
Because it was hard to remember, like, with the limit, because you had different limits depending on
limit or pot
the flop,
limit?
the turn, limit.
Just limit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which made it really annoying, which I didn't like. I'm like, this is pot limit. This will be cool.
Right. It's a lot easier.
This is just limit. Like, yeah, I can't bet anybody out of the pot.
Yeah.
I'm just betting because I flop trips, and I'm like, get out of here. And I'm like, you drew to something because I was only able to bet a little bit.
See, I'm the guy that I like playing high-low just because I like to chase low hands and ruin everybody's day. Like, somebody will flop a boat or some nice high flush, and I'll get my ace 2, 4, 6, 8, 7.
Yeah, I don't think it was high-low. I think it was just high.
And take half the pot, and they're like, oh.
Damn it, you were purposely playing a shitty hand? Yeah, I wanted
it's high-low.
I wanted you to split it with me.
I mean,
you got a good hand, I got a bad hand.
At some point, I'm invested in taking half the pot. Yeah.
It's equal, man.
Yeah. That's a weird game to play, though. Like, it's you got to be.
Are you overbetting because you have a good hand, or overbetting because you got a really shitty hand?
Right. What are you doing right now? I don't understand what you're doing. I mean, Omaha in general is a lot more of a heady game to play.
Yeah. Because so many more options.
Yeah.
So I still can't really do, even just with Hold'em, like actual like percentages. I'm bad about trying to guess like what my odds are.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I got this many people in the hand.
Yeah. I don't know the math.
I've got this. I'm just like, I got my gut, and that's it.
Right. Like, I can do the math on my outs, and I can do the calculation on either what I have or what I could have being the best possible hand combination or whatever. Like, I have pocket aces, ace, king, king flops. Like, okay, I have one out to get the absolute unbeatable hand in this situation. But I also have an ace. I'm aces full, so I'm 90% likely, but a pocket kings could beat me.
Right.
But odds are, I don't know that part where it's like, odds are he's got a king queen. And so he's got a set of kings that loses to my boat. But I've run into a quad at a time or two.
Yeah.
I've only had one royal flush in my life. Have you ever heard of royal flush?
Not in live poker. I think twice I've been beaten by it. Which I kind of take it as a little chip on my shoulder. Like, yeah, it took a royal flush to beat me.
I've had like 3 or 4 straight flushes. Most of them online.
I got one straight flush live.
I've never got a royal live. I've gotten one royal in online.
I got a royal online.
And like 2 or 3 straight flushes real life. That's not true. In Hold'em. In Omaha, I've had a couple more. But it's easier in Omaha because you've got some weird combo where you have like a 3-4 in there.
Right.
That you won't normally, like you wouldn't have played, you wouldn't have seen enough of the hand, but you had other action. And so you stuck around and like, oh, hey, look. Ace 2-5 of hearts flopped. I had 3-4 hearts in here. I forgot about those two. Random poker combo, people.
Mm-hmm.
What's up? I haven't checked on it, on the petition stuff. They got it, I think the 13th. The state race positions are due. And then we'll see the process there.
We heard about a lawsuit in the state. There's has to do with a law we apparently just passed, or legislation that was just passed for state residency requirements.
You were talking about this last week, but I don't remember the specifics.
Apparently we just passed it for you have to be a resident of the state. I don't think it's necessarily your district, but I think at least in the state for 3 years.
To be a state rep from any district.
I think the woman that apparently this bill was kind of geared towards, and it's funny because I remember watching the state house, or at least one of the committees where they were talking about it, and there was a representative that specifically asked, like, and because I think in his mind he didn't want to pass a law that's going to affect this upcoming election. And It was like, is there somebody that's in the running that this is going to affect? And nobody really said anything. But apparently, I can't remember her name, but I think she was actually somewhere in the Trump administration, lived in D.C., but I guess moved around Nashville area last year sometime. So she's been here about a year or so.
Right.
Which I think a part of that article.
Standards.
Well, I want to say, yeah, for federal standards, which I think that was part of the lawsuit, that essentially these state standards that have just been passed or whatever exceed what I guess the U.S. Congress considers as far as their requirements for being a representative.
But it's only for representatives running for federal seats.
I'm pretty sure she's running for a federal seat.
Okay, I mean, I could get behind the idea of having some sort of standard. Like, you can't just live here for a week and run for. How are you supposed to represent Tennesseans if you ain't been here?
Right. I thought there was. I don't know if it was the same law or maybe it was a different proposal of that same law. I thought they said, for you to run, you had to have voted in the past 3 previous elections, which I thought was kind of messed up. It's like, so you just happened to have missed a year, like all of a sudden you got to wait 3 more years before you can run.
3 more cycles, so at least 6 more years. Yeah.
Oh no, I think it would be 3. Yeah, I guess it would be cycle. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at best it's a 2-year cycle. I mean, we in Knoxville, well, you in Knoxville, not me, because I'm not in the city, get an election every year of some sort. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. Chris Davis has talked about it a couple times. Hey, Chris, I haven't mentioned you in the show in a while.
Hope you're having a good run, if you're still with us.
Yeah, I talked to him a little bit ago. I talked to Randy called me a couple weeks ago. I was like, hey, I had an idea. We had a lot of precinct changes and stuff like that. And I thought it might be like a pretty cool thing if me or Daniel came on and help get the word out about some of these precinct changes and stuff, make sure people know that their district and or precinct might have changed. So make sure that people know who they're supposed to vote for and where they're supposed to go to vote and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. Maybe we can do that as a party chair show and was like, give me Daniel. I'll get Matt on board.
Does they have all those people's names on voter rolls?
Probably. But I was like, I'll get Matt on board. Matt and Daniel come in, and I'll see, maybe get Chris Davis. So I emailed Chris, and Chris was like, yeah, if both of them are coming, I'll come. I'm not coming for just one.
Right.
I was like, I can appreciate that. That's a good standard. And so, that was the last we talked about it. We haven't picked a date yet, but I think it'd be a good conversation to have. Hey, this district's moved over here, this district's moved over there.
How long of a conversation is that going to go on for?
Hopefully not very long, and then we can talk about other stuff, and I can have a show that's worth talking about. But I think it's a value. I think it's a value add. I think it'd be worth doing. And if people want to use us as a reference, we can do that show and help people do it whenever. I mean, for me, I guess it's more of if they're going to use me as a performance to do that, they're going to go share it to, they're going to go out and spread the word on it. And so that helps hopefully grow audience base for us, I guess is the point my hope in it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that, and I talked to, like I already said, I talked to Mr. Ron McPherson. I'm trying to get him in with one of the other guys in his office, who is like the head guy on the ESSER funds conversation on how to getting these ESSER funds out.
TISA?
ESSER.
ESSER.
Oh. ESSER is the funding portion of one of the COVID CARES bills, where they said it's a federal government's sending a bunch of money for schools, but it has to be used on COVID-related issues. And so there's a bunch of talk. I remember having a bunch of conversations with a bunch of school board members about what are we doing with this? What are we going to do? What's going to happen? Tutoring is one of the big things. We're going to try to make tutoring available through the schools. Parents don't have to pay for it, blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, I've been paying out of pocket for a tutor for almost a year now. I would be very appreciative. Probably not. At this point, I'm kind of stuck. It's like I don't want to make him change tutors. Maybe if it was a specific subset, like if he's having math issues, I could get him a math tutor from the school and then keep his normal tutor for his other stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's that. The Sharm Allen story. Did we talk about that on show or is that pre-show?
I think that was pre-show.
The only reason I sent it was the comptroller's hard at work, and I know you love your comptroller.
Like I said, I couldn't read it, so I have no idea what the story's about.
No.
I mean, you gave me the basics that I guess
she
and her husband are in the same department.
Yeah. Compass Knox did a story on, I think his name's Kevin Allen. Yeah.
Does it list him? Oh, okay, never mind. Sorry.
Yeah.
Is it the state comptroller or...
Is this okay, anyway.
It's not a joke. I've still been trying to figure out. I've literally gone to both the county and the city governmental websites and tried to look up comptroller, and I've found these general graphs that show the I guess hierarchy of different positions depending on what department you're in, because it has the comptroller listed as, I think it's Department of Finance or something like that. It's kind of what they're under. So it seems like there's a position, but I can't find a single person. And I know you or Max or somebody found the job application for either City of Knoxville or Knox County Comptroller.
Right.
But in all the times I've tried to Google it, I can't find a specific person that it actually is at the moment.
Right.
So as far as I know, all I can find is the state comptroller.
Well, all right. So we'll see if we find it in this story here. Quick. Long time.
Yeah, Tennessee. Yeah, that's our state comptroller. Okay. Jason Mumpower.
Well, get a hold of him and find out who his deputy in Knoxville is. Or just email the office. We'll just email his office and ask. Anyway,
well, I told you I did find it was pretty cool. In the state comptroller's office, they did have a subdivision of someone that helps small businesses.
Yeah. I gotta mention that. Anyway, so Kevin Allen apparently has been a prosecutor in Knox County for many moons. And his wife is DA Sharm Allen.
So how long she's been a Sharm Allen? Or she's been Sharm Allen?
I don't know when she got married. It was probably Sharm something else before Allen.
I mean, how long she's been in the district attorney?
I'm pretty sure it's on the 8-year cycle with the judges and stuff. So as of right now, she's looking at finishing her first 8-year term. She's running for another one. So she's been there no less than 2014 as of right now, if I understand correctly.
I wonder how it took this long for them to find this.
Right. Well, in the Discrimination ran counter to the Attorney General's view. So the prior Attorney General in 2014 didn't see a problem with it. So the couple married during her first run in office. Their husband's charged her for another position outside her office. Should resolve the matter. Because he's taken another job recently. And so nothing's really going to happen. It's just all of a sudden, oh, hey, by the way, this wasn't cool. And he's out the door, so no problems. I don't know. To me, it's an interesting timed event. Like, why would the comptroller all of a sudden right now in the middle of an election cycle drop this story?
Yeah, because I'd say at the state level, we are a major city, but at the same time, it may not have been on the radar. Because I know, the comptroller, that generally they're sifting through,
that brings up
budgets
a good point.
And looking for more.
Right, and what it very well could have been is somebody who is maybe on Team Fennerer or one of the others running against Sharm brought it to the comptroller's attention, and that's why it's happening now. I don't know. That's
my first thought. It wasn't quite on the radar.
That's conjecture at best.
Right.
Or somebody in the state comptroller's office has a axe to grind or whatever the phrase is.
Or a new comptroller came into town.
Right. It's like, hey, man.
It's like, hey, did you know what's going on in Knoxville?
We got to get shit together. So, it's kind of a weird story, and just in the sense that it's like, hey, this weird thing's been going on for 8 years, but it's resolved already, so bye.
Right. It's kind of sad they didn't already think about this. Like, hey, this could be a conflict of interest. Because most attorneys and judges are good about that.
Right.
It's like, hey, we're going to go ahead before this, has any kind of chance for this case to be appealed because of this or that. We're going to take out any reason whatsoever for
but I guess
this to get relitigated.
Okay, again, the Nepotism Acts exist, so there's a problem right there. Fine. But I guess they're on the same team. They have the same end, right? Their goal is to prosecute what they consider criminals. So other than, is he getting paid more than he should be getting paid because he's married to her, or is he getting the easier, better cases, or the harder, whatever, I don't know, is he being treated differently as an employee because of it? That's where the question comes into me, because they're on the same team. It's not like...
Right. That's where he could get assigned higher profile cases, which could then help lead him into better roles or whatever.
Right.
After she retires, him being the district attorney or a judgeship. A lot of attorneys are, or a lot of judges are former attorneys.
They have to be. Yeah, you have to have...
Apparently, in some cases, you do it for a very short period of time.
You have to have a license at least, but you don't have to necessarily practice, but you have to have a license to practice. I don't know, it's an interesting story, but again, like it's just a weird timing thing. It's like, okay. Well, he already... the way it read to me is that like this job was already on the table, and he'd already taken the offer before this even came down.
I thought it was sad that the Attorney General's decision on this changed. I don't know if the rules were different.
Right.
Or if she thought the rules were different at some point.
Right. The prior Attorney General of the state, in 2014, when she took office, and he was already employed there, the prior Attorney General of the state said, nah, no big deal. Don't worry about it. That's what it that's what it reads like to me. So, anyway, that's a random story there. Gonna go back to Ukraine. You want to talk about soccer? Let's talk about soccer. Let's talk about World Cup.
Yeah.
So, the men in a very underwhelming final game of the group play lost 2-0, but
I think I said they
could lose by 6, and they still were.
It's been a long time since they won like in Costa Rica.
Who was it last time? Was it Jamaica?
I don't know.
Because it was last time. It was one of those group it was the last game in the group, and they needed to pull a draw against a Caribbean team to make the World Cup, and they lost.
I don't remember.
It might have been Costa Rica then, too. I don't remember. But because I remember Alexi Lalas on...
Oh, that would have been a long time ago.
No, his last World Cup was 4 years ago. Not playing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
No, I was like, shit, I don't think he's played since like the 90s.
No, Alexi Lalas is as a commentator. He was the panel, the post-show panel, and they were talking about the game or whatever. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen in any sport the rage on a commentator that was coming out of his mouth right at that time.
I think I may have seen a clip of that.
He was just like, "This is unacceptable. We are better than this. There's." Like he ranted and raved for like 5-10 minutes straight about how ridiculous it is that men's soccer basically lost to a bunch of janitors. It was janitors or something like that, because whatever the country was, and he wasn't saying it disparaging about them.
Right.
It's like U.S. soccer is professional level players.
Right.
All these people do for a living is play soccer.
Right.
And they're going down to Bermuda.
Right.
And losing
300,000 people. That a lot of these people have day jobs.
Right. All the guys on that team, like I think he said one player played in, an Ecuadorian league or something like that, like some weird smaller, non-major league soccer country.
Right.
But they had one professional player on the team. The majority of the team had day jobs.
Yeah.
And it's like that's just it's pathetic. Like he was so mad. He's like, it's pathetic. Like I don't care. I don't care that our team's not good and the chemistry's not that great and all that kind of stuff. I don't care. You have a squad of 17 total, 18 guys that all are paid professional soccer players that went and lost to a team with one paid professional soccer player.
Right.
So they go and lose to some Costa Rican team who's probably similar. They don't have a bunch of pro players on the team. But
yeah, I thought I kind of recognized one of the names, but I'm not sure. I've kind of been out of the loop.
Right.
International squad.
But because earlier in the group play they'd had such a good goal differential, they could lose by 6 and still get in. And so they qualified. And then Costa Rica, by beating us, gets to play a play-in game. And I guess it's right before the tournament starts?
What?
That's what it sounded like. I
thought most of those were getting finished up here in a few weeks.
The article
I read would have to be because I guess unless they've changed it, because with it normally being in the summertime, you would have to be wrapping things up by this point.
Right, but the article read to me that Costa Rica is going to play New Zealand in the play-in game.
Which I thought that was here in a week or so.
In Qatar. But it said in Qatar.
Ah.
And so I guess in my head, I assumed that it was going to be... It may have a date already, and we may be talking stupid. But I guess my assumption was if it's going to be in Qatar, it's going to be the week before the actual tournament starts.
Have they actually finished any stadiums?
That's what. That's part of what that was part of my thought process on it. Is not to mention we're playing the World Cup in November. Why?
Because it's in a desert country,
right? Because it's hotter than damn it in a desert country, and we want to make it. We want to make it good soccer, and if we do it in the middle of the summer, it's going to be too hot and it's going to be terrible, and people are going to die on the field. So we're doing it in November. So late October, we're going to have these play-in games because you can't play in Qatar in the middle of summer, and so that's why I assumed that they were that.
Was the last one Rio?
Yeah.
Was that the first time they did the water breaks? I think that was the first time they implemented them.
Yeah, I think so. I'm glad we make it. I think we got a good group. I think we should get through the group into the bracket.
I don't think we know the fourth yet. Iran will probably beat.
Right. It's Iran and what was it?
I saw one scenario where it said it could be Ukraine.
It was Wales, Scotland, Ukraine. That's the three. There's
the three possibilities.
Right. Those are the three options. And then what was it? It was England, who apparently we traditionally do well against in World Cup games historically. But it's England, us, Iran, and either Wales, Scotland, or Ukraine. Which could be interesting if Ukraine is there. I don't know. Geopolitical, whatever, bullshittery.
Oh, it's already going to be geopolitical with us against Iran.
Yeah. I'll nuke your ass. Well, we would, but you won't let us. You won't give us the ability to make it. I was listening to Rogan this week, and I can't remember the name of the guest, but they were talking about he's running for governor of California.
Homelessness?
He was talking about homelessness, so it was one of his big topics or whatever. But his thing was,
I saw some guy, I didn't recognize the name. I almost watched it just because it said he had a theory on how to fix homelessness somewhere. And I wasn't quite sure where they were going to be talking about. I assumed either Texas, since that's where Rogan's out of, and either that
if
or
it's
California.
this guy, it was California.
I assume it was the same guy. It was sometime this week.
But he was talking about nuclear power and stuff like that, because apparently, like, this guy, he considers himself uber progressive, like super progressive. And one of the things he has an issue with is the way the progressives, quote, like capital P progressives, go about some of their, especially their green efforts and stuff like that. And so it's like this, renewable energy, period. That's the progressive stance, in his opinion, at least. Like, that's progressive stance in his opinion. It's nuclear is not an option because we're all scared of nuclear. Coal and gas and whatever, those aren't options or whatever. And he's talking about how it was like, just the transition in the United States from coal to natural gas reduced the U.S.'s by like some gajillion tons a year or whatever of carbon output. And he was talking about, like, you go to like sub-Saharan Africa or some of the South American countries where they're still burning wood.
All right.
And he's like, if you go through the progression of power generation, it's wood, coal, gas, renewables, nuclear. So what are we waiting on? We have the technology to do nuclear power. And he's talking about how, like, in Ukraine and in Europe right now, in Germany specifically, how they've been, for social purposes, they've been shutting all their nuclear plants down, and now they're fucked because they only have one still running, and they're in a soft war with Russia and still buying gas from them. So they put themselves in this stupid situation. It's like, energy independence is important, and we could do it tomorrow if we would get on board with putting nuclear power in again. It's like the Fukushimas don't exist anymore. The way the technology is there, it's like, and he didn't talk about it. It's one of the things that I've thought about, though. It's because my brother was in the Navy. He's an electrician, worked on subs, and it was the control systems for the nuclear systems on submarines. It's like, I don't know. It's the Navy. It's Department of Defense. They might not tell us about it if there's an accident. I haven't heard of one where any of the nuclear-powered submarines or the aircraft carriers or any of those things that have nuclear power plants built into them have had meltdowns, have had any issues of that kind.
Yeah.
So we as a country have that technology to have small nuclear plants that at least in the last 40, 50 years hasn't had any issues.
I think that's been like some of the push, and I guess maybe some conciliation upon both sides is maybe doing more smaller nuclear plants.
I think I don't know. Again, like I said a couple weeks ago, I think the solution to our energy problem in this country is to make electricity so stupid cheap against gas prices and everything else that it's just financially the smart way to do it.
I think many people have tried to look for that, and I don't think there's a cheap way to do it.
I mean, I think comparatively nuclear could, on how much stuff you could take out of the supply chain. It's obviously going to be a subsidized construction project.
The main thing with nuclear is it's essentially the storage of that byproduct after the fact. Yeah,
but that's why I brought it up, because he was specifically talking about it. He's like, you could, he said you could take all the nuclear waste that the United States has produced in the history of nuclear power, and you could fit it in, I think he said, a 20-foot stack on one U.S. football field.
That's bullshit. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I mean, we've literally been in the process of building a holding facility in, I think it's New Mexico.
I'm sorry. Let me correct my paraphrase of him. It was that it was spent rods. Now, when you're talking about like nuclear leaching into groundwater and shit like that, that's a separate conversation. He was talking about spent rods.
No, I'm talking about the actual like byproduct, what we put in drums and have to store underground for hundreds of thousands of years before it's no longer dangerous.
Okay.
We literally do not have the capacity. Even the facility that we have that has not been, I don't think it's been designated to actually be used. I think there's an issue with it right now. I can't remember. There's something I saw in the past year or so, because they've been building it, I think, for the past decade or so, of just basically building this underground bunker out in the desert. But even as it stands, what we have built is not large enough to put all the wastes that we have right now that are essentially just, in some cases, sitting, I don't think it's necessarily outside, but I mean, we've got some in Oak Ridge.
Just some warehouse full of drums of death.
Right.
Wow.
I think it was Finland that just built the biggest, and it's like one of the biggest and deepest, because I think they've been trying to promote nuclear. So they've got like one of the biggest and deepest bunkers, and I think one of the largest.
He was saying
that's able to hold. Because I mean, that's the thing. I mean, where do you put this waste? Because there was
the moon.
There was a big Mars. There was a lot of time we were trying to talk to Australia about housing it there, and Australia was like, "No, fuck no, mate. You're not sending it down here."
Didgeridoo.
Didgeridoo to you too.
I don't know, but he was saying that there's some companies that have figured out some recycling programs for some of the waste too.
I've heard of some I think they tried to work on some reactors where they can almost kind of like reuse, kind of like reburn at least some of that, where maybe you've got less of the actual byproduct or whatever. Yeah, but I've also heard some people say that byproduct isn't created all that often, to where you've actually got to, I guess, recycle in whatever kind of form it is, where you have to put it into a drum.
Oh, you're talking too about like apparently one of the recycling things is plutonium, which the only current standard general use of plutonium is weapons. Huh. So it's like, well, that's not a great byproduct. That's not really a good marketable byproduct.
I think it's tritium is one thing they've been processing here in Oak Ridge. Which speaking of the British man that has the 15 YouTube channels, he just did one on RNL.
I got really mad at Jeopardy this week. They asked about
it
was something about Manhattan Project or whatever, and it was Oak Ridge was the answer.
Really?
And me and the missus were both screaming at the city, Oak Ridge! And she, the lady that chimed in,
say Los Alamos.
No, she said it was Oak something. It was like Oak Mountain or something like that. I was like, you dumbass! It's Oak Ridge.
It's Oak Ridge, you dummy! How do you not know about this little town next to another medium-sized town
in East Tennessee that nobody cares about?
That for years was called a secret city. Yeah.
I mean, it's so crazy. Like the guard towers, some of the guard towers are still up. I'm sure you've seen them.
Oh yeah,
I drive by.
I mean, it's still a high security place.
Well, like when you get in the actual lab area.
I mean, technically, Russia still has ICBMs pointed at Oak Ridge.
I guess it. I don't know.
We still do stuff there.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying, like, if this nuclear war, if Armageddon comes and this mutually assured destruction happens, and the Russians bomb Oak Ridge, how fast do we die?
Pretty quickly.
Because I'm on board with Rogan's plan.
I think we're close enough.
Because like Rogan's deal is, if the asteroid's coming, like he always talks about asteroid, not nuclear weapons or whatever, but he's like, if the asteroid's coming, I want it to hit me on the forehead. Yeah. Like I don't want to have to, try to sort out the survival mess.
Suffer for a few weeks from radiation poisoning.
Right. Or even, like the whole world shuts down, the grid's down, everything's down, and it's like
starved to
survival
death.
Man and survive. Like die
dehydration first, than you would from starvation.
Die slowly over the next week, year, whatever.
So some of the stuff I've read, I mean, as far as like nuclear, like war or whatever, they're more worried about like these systems and missile silo and bases that have been in place for 75 years. Yeah, that if there being like a little bit of rust on a wire, and all of a sudden like, oh shit, that missile just fired off. Like, kaboom! Oh fuck. The Americans just noticed that this missile fired off, so they are now sending missiles in retaliation.
Well, that's that.
Yep.
Deuces, bitches.
You guys got 3.5 minutes?
Yep. Don't tell me. Just don't say anything. Hopefully it's overnight and I just don't wake up. Or like half a second, it's like, it's hot in here. Dead. That would be my goal in this whole thing.
On a lighter note.
Roll over.
Mutually assured destruction.
Yeah. It's happening. No, it's not. It's not happening. We're too dumb to die quickly and efficiently. It's going to be a slow process. I did hear an interesting one on the Breaking Points, the Crystal and Sagar show. One of Crystal's monologues this week, she was talking about how maybe it might be worth changing the class discussion from labor and ownership or the traditional brackets of income to home renter, homeowner, landlord.
Reclassifying what?
Just the way we look,
subset of people?
Just the way we classify the populace in general. Instead of being, under 100,000 to $1 million a year, and then over $1 million a year in income or whatever, however, like that kind of bracketing is changed. Instead of doing income classes, do homeowner class. Because realistically, over the long term,
I don't get it.
Because over the long term, realistically, the average, the what traditionally is considered middle class, usually comes along with homeownership. Because the average middle class individual, or home at least, is the majority of their wealth is captured in their home. Their number one asset is their home.
Yeah.
And so you have a class of people who may have good income, but can't afford a home, can't get a home for some reason, has issues with credit, can't buy a home. They may have more income than somebody else, but in the long-term vision of persons, that home ownership of a less income person is more impactful long-term to that family than the total income at the time. And that was kind of the point she was getting at. It's like, I mean, for us, for example, like we lucked into our house when we got our house and all that kind of stuff. It was happy accident timing and all that kind of stuff. And so there are people that make more money than me that can't afford a house.
Right.
And so, yeah, they can live okay and they can do their thing. But when I get old and I kick the bucket, whether it's this house or another house because we trade up in house value and shit like that over time, whatever it is, I will have an asset, a major asset, that I can pass on to my kids. And whether that asset is turned into a new home for them, whether they move into my home and borrow against that home, because that's another big one to it, is if you want to borrow real money, like a good sum of money,
put up some kind of collateral.
Right, you borrow against your house. And so I want to start a new business, and it's going to cost X number of dollars to get this business started. Not a lot of banks are giving me that loan, even if I have good credit. But I can take out, I could do a new mortgage and take some equity out of my house, kind of shit. And so that was the premise she was getting at, is that for your ability to be mobile in the U.S. economy, for lack of a better word, home ownership is a huge factor for a household to be able to be mobile and do things like that. Where if you're a renter, you don't have the option. It's so much harder for you to do so many things as a renter because rent's so expensive. You can't save up money to try to put a down payment on a house in the future. There's so many things stacked up against you as a long-term renter, especially once you pass a certain threshold. And so, you could get to an income place where it doesn't matter, you can buy. But it's a big, what do you go back to school? Get a new higher paying job? Well, how can you afford to go back to school on a renter's, when you're barely getting by in rent and stuff like that. So that's the idea. So it was an interesting thought. I don't know if I think it has value to talk about it that way. Because I think there's a problem. I mean, we talked about it here. Like, you're looking for a place right now. Mm-hmm. You should, if it was an option for you, I would very much encourage you to buy a house. Even if it's kind of a dumpy house and you have to do some work on it over the next decade. You might as well. I mean, to me, the reason we bought, I was kind of okay with renting. And I was like, you know what? I'm tired of renting and then leaving and having nothing.
Well, there's some pluses to it, depending on the situation.
I mean, you don't have to fix shit.
Especially if you if you're in a crappy place, but shit's going to be breaking, and you got some old shit that you just moved into.
Right. You don't have to fix shit, which is nice.
You got to fix that. As long as you got a decent landlord, you're not.
Right. But, you don't have to fix shit, which is nice, but, again, at the end of the day...
That's one of the few upsides to it.
You live in a place for 5 years. How many thousands of dollars have you paid in rent over 5 years? Right. And you leave and you get nothing?
Right.
Like you might get your deposit back, which is very rare.
True.
So, I don't know. It's a weirdism. It's an interesting greater investment portfolio play that's happening right now, I think, too. That's what she was talking about as well. Is like it's become, instead of investing in loans, which is like a lot of like mutual fund kind of things used to do, where they would be like, we have 100 people, everybody has $10,000 in here. That's 100. What did it say? $100 million. Is that right? Yeah, we have $1 million in cash sitting here, so we're going to loan this out, and we're going to make money off the return, right? So a lot of mutual funds would invest in. We're investing in loans for homeowners, where apparently a lot of that top end capital has started shifting into owning the homes, and the return on the investment is now rent instead of mortgage payments.
Yeah, I think it was. Watched something earlier today. It was like a 60-minute segment from. I think it was within the past couple of weeks or so. It was only they talked about there was a lot of like just corporate entities that were getting into the realty business, and some of those companies were also being backed and funded by some of the major, Goldman Sachs, Chase Bank, and things like that. And I interviewed some realtor lady, and she said, a third of her offers are coming from, corporate people that are doing that. They're buying the property to then turn into a rental property.
Right.
But a lot of those people have the money to pay cash on site,
right?
And
which as the seller,
and buying it sight unseen, to where even you or I, they wanted to go look at this house. They've got people. I mean, they're going to take that offer that's going to pay them cash right then and there, and sight unseen. Right.
As the seller,
and they can even go around. I guess a lot of times there's a company, they can have like a clause in there that says they don't even require an inspection to being done, to where most purchases.
Right. Well, because you have a loan, and the loan requires the inspection.
Right.
The person.
I guess that's their way around that.
The loan company who's paying for it, they want to say, hey, we want to make sure this house isn't going to fall over in 5 years.
Right.
Because then we're not going to get our money back. So they want they insist on the inspection. I mean, and again, as the seller, what do? You asked 200
situation. I mean, they may be looking to get out of as quickly as possible.
You asked 200. They offered 225 cash today.
You can close in 2 weeks.
Yeah, get the fuck out.
Like
that's the scary. Like, what's the solution? Like
that's corporations that are buying it to rent, but. I was saying before, there's also a lot of companies that are buying these up to just turn them into, Airbnbs and temporary rentals that they can just temporarily rent out throughout the year.
I mean, it's the same. I mean, they're the same thing in the grand scheme of things. They're not
quite.
Well, they're not buying to sell. They're not buying to live in it. They're not buying to sell. They're buying to rent, whether it's long-term rental or short-term rental. They're buying to sell. They're buying to rent.
They're going to make more money having. I mean, wow. I don't know about the cost-benefit analysis, because with the short-term rentals. You're paying a lot more for cleaning companies to come in there, once or twice a week.
Right, but I would say a short-term rental is probably twice as much as what a monthly would be.
Right, exactly. Yeah, but you're also paying
but you're also
that premium for staying there for two weekend nights or whatever.
Right, but you're also risking as the company, you're also risking vacancy because you don't have somebody who's contracted for a year.
Possibly, yeah.
But again, that's why
you're charging the premium, for that short term.
Right, I get that. But again, like the solution conversation to me is like I don't know how to like. I don't know what the market solution is. We talked about.
But I say that, in talking about the market, to where like average Joes are getting
their price
smaller and smaller slices of the pie they can even have a chance at getting a hold of.
Right, but the problem to me, and I guess here's where the real market part of the conversation comes into. It's like a city like Knoxville, Knox County. This is why I keep telling AC all the time, just fucking buy yesterday. Make the offer on a house before you get a chance to see it, because these prices aren't coming down. I'm confused or curious or interested in the idea. Is like, what is the thing that regulates the market? One of the big things is going to be, and we're going to see it here very soon, is when the Fed starts jacking interest rates up. A half a point at a time, but whatever. When they start bringing interest rates up, that's going to slow down home buying, or prices at least, because, and that was that's the punchline to me. The punchline, the whole joke of this to me is that if you're buying a house, right now,
I don't think that's going to bring down a demand.
If you buy a house, but my point is, it has to, because if
you're still going to have that demand. They're just going to end up paying more. They're going to be a little more reluctant, but a demand is a demand. It's something you have to have.
Actually, now that I think about it, that actually incentivizes the cash buyer anyway, because they don't care about interest rates. Interest rates don't matter to them, and that's actually it's not an advantage to the market as a whole or the average Joe for the interest rates to go up. because the cash buyer, it's just easy. It's even easier for the cash buyer.
Right, like I don't have to write interest rates. I just paid.
Right, and
click, you're paid.
Right, and if the price starts coming down because interest rates, it's a bonus for me as the cash buyer. Again, so again, I don't know. I think the solution, and I don't like it because I don't like to look for government for solutions, but I think the only solution that I think could have a real impact here would be to have a to up the rental income tax. Like, I don't know if there's a current special one that exists.
Yeah, I was about to say, is that a thing?
I don't think it currently exists, but I think that's the solution. Be like, okay, we have a rental income tax in this state of
like a landlord tax.
Yeah,
it just goes to the people that own multiple properties or whatever.
I mean, you have to designate it like when you're buying a house, you have to designate whether it is your primary residence or not. And I think if you say it is a primary residence, you cannot have rental income from it. Now, I'm sure there's some fun accounting games you could play to prove, disprove, whatever you want. But, you just say, if you are gaining income in the state of Tennessee from rentals, there's an X number of dollar tax. And the way that shuffles down in the market part would be, okay, we put this large tax on rentals. What the landlord does, because they have to, is they up rent. Or, maybe not have to, but they want to. They up rent, and then people can't afford said rent, so they can't get a renter. Or, better yet, it makes it theoretically cheaper, even cheaper, because rent's already over mortgages normally anyway. Right. But it makes it significantly cheaper to buy, but it still leaves that hurdle in place of being able to obtain the loan and buy the house. But a bunch of landlords have houses that they own and they can't rent because it's too expensive. It's too costly for them to own it and rent it. They either sell it or drop rent. But again, going back to the Crystal thing on Breaking Points, it's like...
Oh, man, go to the housing market. The 60 Minutes thing also reported, I guess, apparently after the 2008 housing crisis. A lot of it, what's leading to now is because, in the past 10 years or so, or 10, 15 years, there hasn't been that influx of building. Actually building new houses or whatever has gone down dramatically from what it was before pre-2008.
Right.
So that's also kind of fed into the availability of homes now.
Right. And I think
they were talking about, I guess, the millennials as one of the bigger generations, where a lot of those, they were saying that a lot of millennials don't want to live with their parents and they want to have a place of their own. So then you've got this wide swath of new subsect of the population that's looking for starter homes, essentially.
Yeah, nobody's building starter homes.
Right.
But I think that's I think that goes to wrap this back into local governance and shit. I think that goes back into the conversation. I think one of the problems we have here, and I don't know what the legal solution is and how you exactly do that, but we have to figure out. One, I think the idea of single family dwelling is an interesting problem in and of itself, but I think, we got to figure out a way to get higher density,
there was someone
lower cost.
They were interviewing, said that that the United States government estimated we were lacking 3 million homes.
I want to know the definition of home. Duplex?
I would guess at least a 2-bedroom dwelling.
2-bedroom dwelling could be an apartment, a condo, a duplex, a triplex, a quadplex.
Right, I mean, an apartment can be a
single-family home. I agree. I'm just saying, but that's I think one of the issues at play here is we need more high-density housing in Knox County, and nobody wants it. That's the reality that I don't know how to fix. Because the single-family home that is the goal, per se, I get. But you're not going to get that in a price range. So it's got to be condos, but even those are expensive as shit. So I don't know. That's the thing I'm trying to figure out. How do we get cheaper housing? Because we talked about this. Did we talk about this in the show? I know we talked about it at the shop. We were shooting the shit one day. It's like the idea, one of the problems I have after talking to candidates and talking to different political-minded people around town, it seems to me that the same person that says we need more affordable housing is the same person that's against developer-friendly commissioners or developer-friendly governors, or not governors, mayors.
Yeah.
So how do you have the chance of having affordable housing built without being developer-friendly?
I don't have an answer. I'm just trying to think. I think at the same time, at their level, they're also kind of questioning, if they're going to allow development to happen, and they are the council person for that district. They're also, I'm assuming, thinking about what people are going to move into this. Do I want to have, subdivisions that are, $750,000 houses, which then in turn increases essentially the tax revenue basis that's coming from that as well.
Sure.
To where, or do they want to build a apartment complex where, they can get more people in there, but it's going to possibly be less of a tax base that's coming into them in that district. On
a per acre basis, you're right. On a per acre basis, apartment complex.
I wonder if that comes into play when they're looking at.
See, I don't know. That's a good question.
Bringing in developers.
Because I think the question is, I think the main question to answer there on the tax rolls portion of it and all that kind of stuff.
Because that tax also goes into how much money is going to go into the schools for that as well.
Right, but on a per acre basis, what generates more tax revenue? An apartment complex that takes 1 acre, that the entirety of the building is valued at $3 million, or 4 homes that take up 1 acre that value $2 million.
All right.
So in that case, on the tax portion of it, it is a tax benefit to the county to have an apartment complex, because that apartment complex will generate more tax revenue. Not to mention, holds more people who go out and spend more money, generate more tax revenue. Now, you don't have as many homeowners or owners per se, and I don't know how it solves that other problem we were talking about in the homeownership part of the game, but it at least that should be one of the things that fixes the affordable housing issue, is having supply. We need the supply so that the landlords and or apartment complexes lower their rates to incentivize people to move into there.
All right. But one of the big issues coming to now is, yes, there's supply, but is it, we're talking about affordable housing being the issue. Is there affordable housing out there for people?
Right, but I think the only way to get affordable housing is density. I think that's the thing. The conclusion I'm coming to is we have to have higher density. We have to have higher density, non-luxury build.
I mean, also, there's ways to build, just as nice of houses, much with, let's say, cheaper materials as far as lower quality, but as far as lower cost materials. Every year they, the UT, I think it's like part of like the engineering department. They do, but it's generally more like renewable houses or whatever. But they build like these, tiny homes, smaller homes that are able to be built relatively cheap, depending on the building supplies. But on average, the models that they're building are able to be built very cheaply, because a lot of times they're advertising these to aid companies that are going to other third world countries to build, smaller houses, or going into cities that have more funding for homeless camps,
right? That
are building, tiny homes essentially for the homeless,
right?
That are able to be built, still good quality, they're able to be built very cheaply,
right? A little bit of efficiency. I don't
know if there's just not that desire to build things cheaply because that contractor is not going to make as much money on it, or
I get that part, but
I think there's savings to be made in certain areas. I know there's a certain point to where you just cannot build what you want for a certain price,
right? And the volume, right? Can you make up in individual unit income for volume income?
And I think that's where some of the savings that it'll come into. If you can come up, especially with computer-aided design and everything we have now with 3D printing and things, you can kind of build these like modular homes that can be mass-produced, that are all cookie cutter, but they're just because there's that much more demand, and you built a factory to build like a certain amount of things. That's where cost goes down if you're making more of a certain thing.
Right, but does the demand stay up as price comes down?
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I again, like I said, I think it is a complicated issue for sure, but
as with many things. I think that's one of the things that's brought down solar is it's very expensive because it hasn't really been done as much, and that's why I think that's one reason why the cost has remained relatively high.
Yeah, I want to say that I did a thing over my house, and to get it to be an average zero on my electric bill, it was like $35,000.
I think I was reading that Tennessee cut out because for a while we had it was like essentially like tax rebates or incentives to add solar to your home,
right?
And I think there was something that was passed that basically cut a lot of that out.
I'm sure TVA hated it.
Yeah. I think they also cut out if you happen to produce more. I think they were cutting back how much they actually had to repay you for money or for wattage that you're running back into the system.
Yeah. I mean, I've still thought about it. Like, I'm still on the fence. Like, I'd like to do it just because whatever, but it's like, for $35,000, it's going to take me 20 years to get to zero.
What's a really cool thing on geothermal? One thing I hadn't really thought of that they pointed out, a lot of it has a lot to do. Geothermal, you're drilling into the ground. They're like, we've got all these, natural gas and oil executives and, engineers that are, have their expertise in drilling hundreds of feet under the ground for whatever. Like, these are the people we need to bring into geothermal.
Right.
In many parts of the country, we have geothermal, access to use geothermal power.
I was reading a story about like Shell and BP and some of them. They're spending a ton of R&D in non-oil and gas.
Right. There's also stories of that just kind of being
scammy.
Yeah.
Something, I don't know.
Whitewashing.
At some point,
greenwashing.
It's the innovator's dilemma. There's a real long-term thing that's existed in all sorts of industry. Kodak being the great example. A Kodak engineer developed the digital camera. And Kodak was like, this is amazing. This is the future.
They made the digital camera?
Mm-hmm. Kodak invented the digital camera.
Huh.
And
are you going back to the brownie?
I don't know.
What? Digital?
Like just the personal digital camera as we know it was a Kodak product. But they kind of sat on it because they knew it was good, but it was going to destroy their business.
Right.
And so they were stuck in this model of, well, we make our money in film and film development and chemicals and all that kind of stuff. We either have to go all in on this digital camera service and quit what we do and basically become a whole separate business, or just continue down the road. And I don't know exactly what the story is on how and what and who else developed a digital camera, and that's what took over and blah, 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 blah. But that's the, like CNN right now too. Like I think that was what the story was. It's talking about CNN Plus. It's they're like,
are they doing an offshoot now?
Yeah, it's at $2.99 a month on sale. On sale before it even came out for half price. But it's $2.99 a month, and there's all this exclusive content, whatever. And it's like that was the whole.
Do
joke.
they have extra news to give out?
Right, that was the whole joke of the story. It's like, who's going to pay $2.99 a month for what they get on the channel for free?
I guess I could almost kind of get it if they were doing an offshoot. Like, there's the
they do have some special
Fox Business, and I think there's like
right. They do have
NBC
some exclusive.
Has a business thing.
They have exclusive content on it, but it's like, why buy the cow if I get the milk for free? And so like, what is anybody subscribing for? Because CNN sees the writing on the wall. Internet-based news sources is where people are going.
Yeah.
And they want to be part of that, but they can't give up the thing that's paying the bills right now. And so it's either go all in or go half in, and they're going half in, and it's not going to work because the half in nobody's going to pay for. And so, anyway, I don't know why we got on that, but I don't know. We need more houses in this town, and then we need more infrastructure in this town. Or we need to just say, fuck it, and make it super expensive to move into this town and hard to do and not grow. Because again, like I was talking to Jesse and them about it this weekend. It's like,
you can say more expensive to live here, but I'm assuming people are still going to look at the general cost of living as far as utilities.
Right, but
it's still low relative to the rest of the U.S.
So as a commission in the mayor's office, we take a hard line on limiting new construction. I mean, very small, very short list new construction, very small expansion, no more major development, stuff like that. With the demand as high as it is, at least everybody that currently owns a home in Knox County will be getting filthy rich, or at least filthy rich value-wise, maybe not unless you sell it. It'll force the demand out at some point. The question is, how high does value get in homes before it forces it out, and then what does that do to the population that's here? We can stop growth. We can. We could rezone and say, no more. Everything is one house per acre.
I think it's as simple as just turning the tap off.
You could do some damage to it. Maybe not. It may not be turned all the way off, but you can do some real damage.
The only option you have is disincentives, like you're talking about.
Right. Disincentives to
There's no stop that you can only disincentivize.
Well, disincentive to supply as a whole. You could do all sorts of stuff. You can deny architecture drawings. You can deny permits. You can deny X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Not to mention rezone into less density. Environment, like put some environmental tax on new development that makes it really expensive.
Right.
You could do a lot of stuff to significantly slow it. You're correct. We can't fully stop it.
To go back to plausible, does that seem plausible to you? That many businesses that make that much money off of developers, engineers, builders.
Again, like
that's a lot of money. That's potentially a lot of money lost to them.
Okay.
Do you think they would let that happen?
Who is the commission supposed to work for? And again, like, everybody looks at me sideways, and I ask the question all the time.
They're working for the people.
Have we had a real conversation about how much growth we want as Knox County? No. Because the reality is, those of us that are here don't want it. That's a fact. The majority of Knox County doesn't want the growth. You know how I know that?
How you know?
Because I don't want it next door.
That's how you know.
Everybody says that. Everybody says that. Like, I live in this great development. I don't want another development on that farmland next to me. You hear that all the time. Why don't you want that development? Because I don't want the traffic. I don't want the this. I don't want the that. Now, for me, sure, build all the shit you want in Powell. I don't care. It's over in Powell. But everybody in Powell, no, build your shit over there in Bearden. We got plenty of shit over here. We're too busy over here. We got too much traffic over here. Everybody says do it on the other part of town. Yes, we want growth, but we want it on the other part of town. And so by aggregate, nobody wants growth.
It's the old adage of not in my backyard.
Right. But the aggregate is nobody wants growth. Nobody wants to deal with what growth brings. So if the government is working for me and you, and the reality is we don't want growth, why are we going out of our way to get growth? Why are we putting TIF and pilot programs in place to get businesses to build stuff so that they can have employees that both employ people that live here and bring more people in to work there? Why do we do these things? Why is growth the important thing? I get it. There's two things that are happening. You're either growing or you're dying. And Knoxville doesn't want to die.
We need the tax basis because our roads are great and shitty at the same time.
What's the conversation? Are we having a conversation as a population of Knox County on what we want? Because I hear the answer, but nobody's actually having the conversation. We don't want growth. What are the measures that we can do to stop it? Or we do want growth. And how much bullshit are we willing to deal with in the process of the growth? Is there a level we want to grow to and stop? Like we're at about 500,000, or we could like at 1 million. Is that where we start to say, okay, this is enough? What number? Or is it just growth for growth's sake? When? How? We're not having that conversation. We have new sector planning and all that kind of stuff going on. But it's all growth planning. It's all planning for the growth that's coming. It's not planning on stopping the growth or slowing the growth. And again,
generally, that's what some of the planning commission is supposed to be doing is looking out 5-10 years of looking at previous data. This is the average amount of people this has been our growth rate, and these would be the trends that we're developing this way in the county and this way in the county, and they're going this way.
Right. And again, I agree with that. And honestly, and I'm not sitting here trying to preach
this is probably going to be a business district if we develop out this way.
Right. I'm not trying to preach that I don't necessarily want the growth, or that I'm not okay with the growth or whatever. But I don't feel like that conversation's being.
We don't have that room for growth, essentially.
Right. And
we don't have the infrastructure in place to build new roads, new
right. And if we're going to acknowledge that we want growth, then we need to figure out how to pay for it.
Right.
And the idea that the new development's going to pay for the growth that they are doesn't seem to be a truism to me. That, we put this new multi-house billion-dollar neighborhood together.
That's going to bring
that
in
tax base is going to come
revenue.
up, and then we're going to build a road that actually supplies that neighborhood. No, that's not what's happening. So is the tax base too low for property tax currently? I don't know. Are there other revenue sources that we could be seeking out to try to make up the difference and get the infrastructure we need? I don't know.
Is it too late to cancel the stadium?
No.
Damn it. Oh, and it's not?
No.
Okay, good.
I'm sure there's some way we could get out of it. I'm sure it'll cost a bunch of money or whatever. But again, like that's the thing about the stadium thing to me is like everybody was like, it's inevitable, it's going to happen, whatever. It's like, do we want that growth downtown? I know East Knoxville doesn't, at least from their representatives' mouths, because they want affordable housing, and that stadium is not going to help bring affordable housing. It's just not. It's actually going to drive the cost of housing down there up.
I still don't think this is a waste of money.
Well, it's not.
I think it is.
It's money. It's good use of lost money. Otherwise, that's the fun. That is the genius of Mammoth. Mammoth is a genius. Like that's the brass tacks.
It's gonna be lost money.
We're
losing money.
It's captured money. Yeah, it's captured money we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. The majority of it. 13.
We're losing out on money that we asked the state for,
it's
which
not a valid,
is funded by taxpayers.
It's not a valid. Technically, yes, it's not a valid. It's not a valid argument to say what else could we spend $81 million on?
It's not.
It's not.
It's not
because we don't have access to that $81 million. So it's only 65 or 67 or whatever. We don't have access to that 67 or the majority of that 67 unless we do this thing. You can't. It couldn't be a school. We couldn't get $67 million in the same way we got this if it was a school. If it was X, Y, Z, there's the actual functional way that this bond loan system thing is working. We don't get the 13.5 from the state. We just don't. It goes and spreads out into state stuff in general.
So you think apples to apples? If we went to the state and said, "Hey, we want X amount of money to build a new school."
I don't know how the state responds to that.
Or we need that same amount to build a stadium. They're like, cool, let's do it.
I mean, I don't know how that works specifically.
Yeah, I mean, it goes through different budgets or whatever.
Right. But I know
that's one thing I was reading where you have that tangible benefit of building a stadium. That's I think we talked about before. Or that was where I was asking if you had watched that John Oliver thing, where they were talking about the modern monetary theory, where they were saying a lot of it comes down to which side of the balance sheet this or whatever gets put onto. Where in this instance, on one balance sheet, as far as deficit or whatever, a stadium was put on, to where the other side you've got this school, which is an asset, but it gets totally divided as as a benefit or whatever.
Right, but the stadium does.
He's going to get that tangible benefit to where in the future, you have the school that is building out, possible people to then come back into the community and build up the community, where the stadium is essentially, you're building money through sales of tickets, possibly bringing in some tourists to come to it that are then patronizing area or businesses around that,
right? Which in theory is upping tax revenue,
but it's hard to really truly estimate, the benefit of that school,
right? Right, but
total of both those same things cost $10 million or whatever,
right? I mean, I get what you're saying.
Where it's harder to quantify the greater good of that school versus
how many students that graduate from Knox County school systems stay in Knox County, and how much revenue do they generate a year for Knox County tax rolls? Like that's factor A. Okay,
I mean, it's just an aspect of that, versus a museum or whatever.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, if you do the school example, you say, how many kids will graduate from that school particularly? How many of those kids that graduate will stay in county and work and live there? And how much tax revenue do they generate that they wouldn't have otherwise if they didn't have the school? Again, I'm agreeing with you that it's really complicated to see that as a...
I want to say that example was more put into with the whole, like, balance sheet as far as... I think it was broken down to more, like, in the state of what budget that would come out of, to where building a school is coming out of the more... our Knox County budget as far as how much money the state allocates to this. I don't know if Knox County, advocates for an additional bonus because we want to build an additional school. I'm assuming if we want to do that, we've got to pre-think out.
Right, and is there
taking that larger chunk out of our yearly budget just to build a school?
Is it in law that the state has to
the stadium we went directly to the state and said, "Hey, we want to build this. Can we now have this chunk of money?"
Right.
But as far as like monetary wise, I think was how they were kind of talking about it.
Right. It's just
it's on two totally different ledger sheets as far as
it's a shell game and
where that deficit is going.
Yeah.
Who's taking the loss on that?
Right.
That side of the economics.
I don't know. I just think it's
complicated.
It's complicated. We don't talk like that. He's not here. I just think it's to be the way the funding of the stadium thing works is that like Jesse said this to me the other day too, from Jesse Mayshark. These TIF and pilot programs, like everybody likes to kind of try to use them as leverage, and it's an interesting take. Is the developer still has to exist, and they still have to have the cash and capital and experience and all the different stuff that it takes to do the thing that they're asking for the deal from us locally for. It's not like you're just handing TIFs out to somebody to go build a building. It's somebody that wants to come build a building, and they would like a little help. Developers don't just show... I mean, they show up asking for the handout, sure, and that's kind of shitty, sure. But you have to have the developer for this thing to work. Unless you want the county or the city building things on their own.
To build a stadium, you have to have a builder to build it, but...
The builder to build the stadium is not what we're talking about. It's the Randy Boyd who wants to build a stadium down there. It's somebody who wants to build the thing, who wants to actually go through the process of building the thing. It's a big, complicated process, regardless of the tax part and all the money part. It's a big, complicated process.
How complicated?
I mean, to manage all the builders and all the construction and all of this and the team and all the different things, it's a complicated process. It's not. It's easy. You can just build a building just like that.
I'm not saying it's easy, but hospitals get built all the time. I don't think this is anything outside of building a large building. Yes, it takes a foreman, and there's many levels to getting different contractors.
Right, but it's a foreman that's.
But I don't think this is anything astronomical. Like this only happens like once in a lifetime. Like there's only like a handful of people that know how to build a stadium.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think this is anything. I don't think there's anything grand. I mean, hell, he owns the other one that's in Kodak.
No,
I don't think it was any grand thing to build it there. Oh, whatever. He owns the team. I'm sorry.
Right. Okay. The stadium might not be the best example of it, but the idea being that these TIF and pilot programs to incentivize builders to build shit don't exist without the developer to build it. And it's so
again, that's a given. Yes, you have to have a developer for a large project. What's your point?
The point being is that it's not a given. You can't just take a piece of thing like the AJ building and that whole debacle when it's a hotel again now. It's not apartments anymore or whatever the fuck. Keeps going back and forth this whole process, which I'm frustrated with.
I think it's going to be a hotel,
right? But it was going to be a hotel, and then it was going to be apartments, and then it was going to be a hotel again. And I think it's back to hotel one more time. Anyway, the point is that AJ building, which was city property prior, and they wanted to sell that. And in order to sell that, they had to throw the TIF and pilot stuff on top of it to get a developer to come in and redevelop that building.
What's the TIF again? I'm sorry.
I don't remember. Tax.
I mean, just generally, you don't tell me exactly, but
tax incremental financing. Something like that. The pilot's the one I understand.
A funding program, right. Essentially.
Payment in lieu of taxes is the pilot.
It's the pilot, program.
Right. And so, I guess the point of the pilot, like the pilot's a better example, as Jesse was explaining to me, is like, it's a pilot program specifically, you're still building the building, or you're still renovating the building, you're still doing whatever it is to the building that you do. Because if you don't do it, even if we give you the pilot, nothing changes. Because all the pilot does is say you get a pause on your property tax value for a property for a period of time. Well, if you don't develop it, It doesn't matter if you pause it or not. It's the same property tax you're going to get on the other side. You know what I'm saying? So if I give you a pilot to do a renovation on a major building.
So, I mean, outside of that, it would encourage people to default on it and just sell the property?
I mean, maybe, which is good. If you don't take advantage of it, you want to get rid of the property to somebody else who hopefully will. Yeah, that would be good for us as a locale. But the idea is that the developer still has to have the money and the know-how and to do all the stuff to get the building up. Fuck, I don't know. Ramble too long on this. Jesse explains shit better than I do anyway. Last call. Nah. All right, so we're going to beat England and Iran, and it doesn't matter who the third team is. We're going to get through this World Cup. We're going to get into the bracket.
I think we'll go through the next round. I'm hoping it'll be England, then us. And then
English soccer's been pretty rough in the last couple. Last World Cup?
No, they said last World Cup. I think they made it to the Final Four, I heard.
That was the first World Cup in like 4, though, that they made.
Probably.
They had a.
But most recently.
Right, that's fair.
Which some of the same people.
They had a cold snap there for a little bit. Anyway, World Cup soccer in November. Why the fuck out? Weird-ass cutter shit. We're still at war with Ukraine, but not really. I think I covered everything. Elections are coming up. I've got a few. I got another judge coming in.
Nice.
Excited about that one. Anyway, all right. That's cool.
Nothing important.
All right. Almost agreement does what almost agreement does. Which is a lot of nothing. Anyway, we're Almost Agreement at gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to our website, almostagreement.com. Links to all the shows I've done with candidates, as well as their website if I could find it and stuff like that. So I'm going to keep filling it out and add some stuff as I can. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, favorite podcast provider. Like, follow, subscribe, share, whatever the thing is to help get the word out. Tell your friends about us. We're going to keep doing what we do. Like I said, I got a couple of interviews coming this week, and next Sunday, be on the lookout for the new project that I am a part of. But you don't have to hear my voice in it, so bonus. Anyway, we're almost here, everybody. Have a great night. Thanks for sticking around.